Rain lashes against the dark towers of a Gothic castle. A rhythmic tock-tock of footsteps echoes as a maid walks.
A sudden whish sounds as the maid turns around in the warm.
A close-up reveals her eye widened in absolute terror. A blood-splattered blonde boy with glowing blue eyes stares coldly.
A brown-haired girl in a hoodie screams in shock. She recalls playing a hyper-realistic horror game while intoxicated.
The game menu for Murderer of the Palsgraf County appears. Shafts of light illuminate a dusty in-game cathedral hallway. She regrets buying the vicious game as a mascot mocks her. She decides to play for just a few more minutes.
A system message asks if she has seen the underworld.
Red text describes a blue moon above a bloody mover. A skeletal figure reaches upward as a demonic name is invoked.
Red windows ask if she knows the fallen angel, Satan.
Dark shadows and flowers create an ominous, shifting atmosphere. The narrative reveals he pointed his sword at Queen Lilith.
A blade is described as piercing the queen's heart.
Red rain bursts forth as the queen's life ends.
She cast a final curse on Satan beneath the men.
He is commanded to survive while hidden in human skin. Dark omens of illness and a hangman's noose are foretold. The god of death promises a cycle of endless suffering.
Satan is named as the conqueror of a shattered throne.
A final blood-red command orders him to kill again. Adrian, the demonic blonde boy, plans to regain his strength.
He prepares to kill a maid to advance the game.
The mission fails because an unexpected witness walked by.
He attempts to lure the target away for a separate kill.
He fails again when the intended victim escapes his grasp.
A sudden illness causes another failure in his murderous cost.
The girl weeps over the game's cruelty and immense difficulty. She wonders how anyone could clear such a grotesque game. Her eyes suddenly shimmer with a mysterious golden light.
A handsome blonde man appears amidst a field of flowers.
She notes the protagonist's striking looks despite the grim story.
Fatigue washes over her as the clock strikes 2:30. Her body feels impossibly heavy as she succumbs to exhaustion.
Bubbles rise as her vision fades and her eyes close. She feels as though she is sinking into a deep sea.
The girl wakes up in a sun-drenched, unfamiliar bed. She searches for her phone while questioning her new surroundings.
She is struck by a terrifying realization about her situation. An older woman bursts in, demanding medicine for Master Adrian. The girl is shocked to be addressed as a steward.
The head maid yells at her to get moving immediately.
A loud slam sounds as the older woman leaves in anger.
The girl tries to dismiss the events as a drunken hallucination.
A sudden, chilling realization makes her face go completely pale. A system notification confirms she has been transported into the game.
Adrian peeks through the door, wondering who could be inside.
Chibi Hilda remains deep in slumber beneath the Master's floral-patterned bedding. A side quest unlocks as a meta-community celebrates the Master's elegance.
Sunlight bathes the castle as cherry blossom petals drift through the air.
A red-eyed duke poses sternly with a sunglass-wearing cat on his shoulder. A cheerful knight and a mischievous tower master appear in portraits. A raccoon mascot introduces the heart-fluttering romance occurring at the canny. A hand reaches out as the Master senses his desired prize nearby. A sudden, sharp bling sounds as Hilda wakes up with a start.
Hilda realizes she is in his bed while he watches her.
Looking toward the chair, she wonders what the Master is doing.
Adrian looks up from his book, demanding an answer to his question.
A sudden twitch sounds as Hilda hides under the covers, huffing nervously.
Hilda panics and explains she fell asleep while changing the sheets.
She frantically offers to wash the bedding again after accidentally dirtying it.
Hilda offers to swap beds if the Master finds the situation unacceptable. She promises to return after a quick cleanup, clutching a dark buck. A heavy rhythmic thump sounds as she notices something strange on his desk. Thump. Adrian feels a shift in focus as he observes his maid. A pen lies forgotten atop a canvas of chaotic red scribbles. Adrian dismisses her, granting her permission to leave the room immediately. He insists on handling the bed himself, urging the maid to pow.
Walking away, Hilda wonders why the suspicious Master spared her without question.
Creepy imagery surrounds Hilda as she struggles to understand the Master's thoughts.
Chibi Hilda makes a hasty retreat before the Master changes his mind.
She focuses on surviving the story until she reaches the happy ending.
Hilda envisions herself as a noble lady dancing happily with a suitor.
A loud ding sounds as she dreams of luxury without any murderers. A bewildered ha sounds as a sudden system interface blocks her path. A notification informs her that she owes 300 gold for ruined petting. Hilda's eyes widen in horror as her entire fortune flies away. The system collects her gold and warns of further deductions for damages. With a 0 gold balance, Hilda is forced to consider filing for bankruptcy. Pixelated text declares Hilda a bankrupt beggar kicked out of the kami. A deep inhale sounds as Hilda prepares herself to re-enter the room. A soft rustle sounds as she returns, realizing she cannot leave yet.
Hilda imagines herself begging for punishment to atone for her financial debt.
In reality, Hilda stands in a rigid pose, ready to face judgment.
Adrian looks confused, asking for clarification on her desire for a punishment.
Hilda offers to perform any labor, from weeding to cleaning, as penance. Her imagination runs wild with tears as she laments her empty pockets.
Chibi Raccoon Hilda looks traumatized while explaining she has been pushed too far.
Narration identifies the system as a heartless bully targeting the hardworking maid.
Adrian questions the identity of the person who keeps harassing his servant.
Miss, Chibi Raccoon Hilda fails her task while cursing the heartless system. Hilda begs him to keep her debt a secret from the head maid.
She assures him she will resolve things without causing him any trouble.
Adrian ignores her excuses, demanding she finally answer the question he asked.
A soft, quick slide sounds as Hilda considers his question. Hilda looks down, realizing his inquiry might be her best chance at survival. Adrian's intense gaze remains fixed on the maid as he demands the answer he feels entitled to hear.
Facing the master in the middle of his quarters, Hilda stands frozen while clutching the laundry bundle.
Shadows dance across the master's face, highlighting his piercing blue eyes as he waits for her response.
Her eyes darting nervously, Hilda stammers out a shaky agreement to provide the answer he seeks.
The blonde-haired master leans down and speaks her name with a low, chillingly calm tone. Adrian reaches out a hand, firmly grasping Hilda's chin to force her to look directly at him.
Her pupils contract in shock as she wonders what the master is doing while his silhouette looms over her.
A sense of confusion washes over Hilda as she realizes how uncomfortably close the master's face has become. The master holds her face with an unreadable expression, his features just inches away from the trembling maid. Dark vines and sharp daggers frame the ominous command to fulfill his mysterious desires at any cost. Adrian asks why she avoids him and notes that even now she is looking elsewhere instead of meeting his eyes. He repeats his demand for an explanation, insisting that she tell him the real reason for her persistent avoidance.
Stuttering through her fear, Hilda begins to formulate a desperate excuse to explain away her strange behavior.
Chibi Hilda makes a bizarre, comical face that leaves the master looking genuinely stunned and momentarily speechless.
Adrian asks what she just said as Hilda declares her reasons with a sudden and surprising burst of confidence. Against a cute backdrop, Hilda shamelessly flatters him, claiming he has grown into a sickly handsome man who is exactly her type.
She continues her performance, telling him her heart thumps and her limbs tremble so much she cannot even look at him.
Hilda suggests he must surely know how good-looking he is, and likely wonders how anyone could look so perfect while staring in mirrors. She mockingly claims he must think about how his parents gave him such a face and feel thankful for the rest of his life. Tears of fear well up in her eyes as her internal voice curses the demon for trying to strangle her earlier. Moonlight spills through the window as Adrian asks if his handsomeness is truly the reason she has been avoiding him.
Hilda confirms her heart failure lie, claiming her ears feel like they will burst when she is near his overwhelming beauty.
A frustrated sound escapes as Chibi Hilda reflects on how annoying it is to spout such nice things to her potential murderer.
Adrian brushes back his hair, looking slightly overwhelmed by the flattery, while Hilda notes she isn't technically lying about his appearance.
A sudden quick sound echoes as Adrian opens the bedroom door and tells the maid that she is permitted to leave. A soft, quick click sounds as Adrian grips the doorknob, prompting a confused Hilda to call out to her young master.
Chibi Hilda offers to take the dirty pillow he intends to trash, but Adrian notes he requires 6 pillows for a proper rest.
Hilda's face falls as she realizes her plan failed, while Adrian observes her with a look of sudden, quiet understanding.
Adrian stops by the doorway and asks if she is suggesting that she can replace the single missing pillow himself.
A soft, quick sound echoes as Adrian leans in dangerously close behind her, wondering what would happen if he asked for something.
A soft, quick chuckle sounds as Chibi Hilda realizes her empty pockets make her a poor target for any financial demands. Adrian watches her with a calm, analytical expression, his blue eyes tracking every nervous twitch of the maid standing before him.
A soft, quick rustle sounds as the master dismisses her into the moonlit night, prompting Hilda to beat a hasty retreat.
The scene shifts to a bright morning where a small bird chirps on a leafy branch outside the majestic county castle. Inside the kitchen, voices express disbelief and gratitude toward Hilda for securing a rare break from the head maid's strict supervision.
Hilda and Emily sit together on a bench, relaxing with drinks while sunlight filters through the bustling manor kitchen. Emily leans in with curiosity, asking Hilda to explain what exactly happened to cause such a sudden change in their routine.
From across the room, Emily exclaims about how surprised everyone was by Hilda's recent and unprecedented display of competence and skill.
Narration illustrates Hilda's newfound efficiency as she perfectly brews drinks, handles linens, and organizes the kitchen with professional ease.
A sudden, sharp sound echoes as Hilda levels up, realizing her past experience working at a cafe is finally paying off.
A digital interface displays Hilda's status alongside an interest log showing a slight, mysterious increase in the master's level of intrigue. A soft, quick sound echoes as Hilda ponders the system's mechanics, hoping to leverage character interest to gain valuable new skills. She wonders if Adrian is simply a demon who thrives on flattery while deciding to monitor the interest log very carefully.
Emily's loud shout snaps Hilda out of her deep thoughts, startling her while she was mid-sip of her morning drink.
Emily pouts while explaining that she has been trying to get Hilda's attention for a considerable amount of time.
The red-haired maid nervously asks if Hilda would be willing to accompany her on a task to the Countess's room.
Hilda agrees in principle, but asks for clarification on why Emily is so visibly shaken by such a simple request.
Emily trembles and hugs herself, describing the room as terrifying and begging Hilda to stay nearby for emotional support.
Looking down at her friend, Hilda questions why the Countess's room is so feared when the woman herself isn't a demon. Creepy imagery of spiderwebs and old artifacts illustrates Hilda's theory that important information is always hidden in the scariest places. Hilda considers if the key to stopping Adrian lies within the Countess's chambers.
She looks forward with a look of firm resolve. A sudden realization suggests the potential risks might be worth the reward.
Emily trembles with visible fear, her hands clenched nervously.
Reassuring her friend, Hilda promises to handle the task quickly and return safely. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Emily praises Hilda's friendship and offers to prepare the supplies.
A soft, quick hug sounds as the red-haired maid clings to her brave companion.
A soft, quick chuckle sounds while Hilda focuses on securing the valuable item.
Approaching her destination, she acknowledges her arrival with a deep breath. Holding the tea tray, Hilda stands before a massive, ornate wooden door. A cold, quick shiver sounds as a sense of dread permeates the hallway.
A soft, quick gulp sounds while Hilda compares the room's aura to the master's. A sudden, quick knock sounds as Hilda announces her presence and offers the tea.
She pauses, noticing dark, wispy shadows swirling through the dim corridor.
The oppressive atmosphere thickens as Hilda cautiously moves forward. Spotting a dark portrait on the wall, she expresses surprise at the somber edge. A sudden, quick creak sounds while Hilda dismisses common horror cliches with a grin. She notices the door is already ajar, prompting a confused reaction.
A sudden quick splat sounds as Hilda enters, hoping to find something useful.
Horror strikes as she realizes her boot has stepped into a dark puddle. Hilda stares down at the thick, dark fluid pooling beneath her feet. Her face pales as the grim reality of the room begins to set in. The wreckage of the room is accompanied by a ghostly, fragmented whisper. Dark handprints and bloodstains cover the floor alongside an eerie, disjointed nursery rhyme.
Hilda's eyes widen in terror as the haunting lyrics continue to echo.
A blonde woman looks down, her expression a mask of unsettling serenity. The Countess sits rocking a dead kid goat, singing a macabre lullaby.
A sudden, quick squish sounds as the woman's yellow eyes fixate on her best.
Dark floral patterns frame the disturbing scene of madness and grief.
Crow-like imagery surrounds the Countess, heightening the room's supernatural tension.
Shaking, Hilda attempts a polite greeting despite the bloodstains on the furniture.
She apologizes for the intrusion, identifying herself while watching the rocking figure.
The maid struggles to maintain her composure while the madam remains silent.
Noticing the dead crows on the floor, Hilda asks for permission to leave. She mentions the tea is a new blend, forcing a desperate, nervous smile. The Countess stares back with haunting, vacant eyes as she begins to speak.
A heavy, rhythmic thump sounds as Hilda's hands tremble violently.
Thump. Visions of feathers and dark static blur Hilda's perception of the room. Thump. The psychological pressure mounts as the maid faces the unstable woman.
Hilda bows her head, trying to shield herself from the oppressive energy.
A sudden quick creak sounds while she slowly looks up at the madam.
Creak. The haunting lullaby repeats, drowning out all other sound in the room. The blonde woman smiles tenderly at the bundle in her arms, whispering softly.
A soft, quick clatter sounds while Hilda tries to rationalize the situation as data.
A soft, quick step sounds as she navigates through the bloody mess toward the madam.
Hilda notes the realistic stench, reminding herself she is merely inside a game.
A soft, quick clatter sounds while she admits Emily's fear was well-founded. Leaning in, Hilda asks if the Countess requires any further assistance before departing. She begins to back away, her eyes never leaving the eerie woman. The madam continues to rock the stuffed goat, lost in her own delusion. The madam's haunting voice calls out to her, causing a terrified Hilda to flinch. Hilda nervously asks if she was called while a sudden, quick wobble sounds as she tries to process the strange atmosphere.
Standing in the wreckage of the room, the maid wonders why the blonde woman called her only to remain completely silent.
Noticing the madam's distant and unfocused gaze, Hilda wonders exactly what the unstable woman is looking at. The madam's piercing golden eyes remain fixed on an unseen point in the dim room. With a sudden soft smile, the blonde madam finally acknowledges her presence and asks for the maid's name. Surprised by the woman's sudden change in demeanor, Hilda politely introduces herself to the madam. Hilda realizes the madam is surprisingly gentle and notes the system indicates a rising interest level toward her. The blonde woman kindly asks if Hilda has visited the local village, mentioning its many attractions. She describes the village's treasures, from exotic tea leaves and rare fabrics to the ever-changing boutique wares. A system notification confirms that the requirements to reveal Ida Village have been met, granting Hilda permission to leave the estate. Hilda concludes that the map unlocked due to the Countess's increased interest, realizing Adrian isn't the only character with such mechanics. Hilda enthusiastically thanks the madam and promises to bring back better ingredients from the village while a sudden, quick creak sounds. The dark atmosphere returns as the madam begins singing a haunting lullaby while rhythmic, ghostly creaking echoes through the bloody room. A sudden, quick clatter sounds as the madam continues her macabre song about a mother singing to her baby. Hilda quickly takes her leave as the madam's unsettling lullaby follows her out into the shadows of the wreckage. The blonde woman sits alone amidst the blood-soaked ruin, whispering the final words of her chilling nursery rhyme. As the door closes with a soft, quick step sounding, the madam's voice fades into a final, eerie promise about a mockingbird. Hilda sighs in relief until she hears a final, dark whisper wishing for Adrian's peaceful death while a sudden, quick creak sounds. Frozen by the chilling words, Hilda eventually forces herself to keep moving through the dark corridor as a sudden, quick go sounds. A sudden, loud jump sounds as someone calls out to Hilda, asking if she is all right. Emily nervously notes how long Hilda was inside and mentions she looks pale, but Hilda tries to dismiss her concern. Hilda admits the final part of the lullaby was deeply unsettling as a sudden, quick shake sounds through her hands. Emily suggests they move away from the door to talk, while Hilda silently wonders where the madam obtained a goat's head. Emily explains that the madam has been unstable since the young master's baptism and reveals the count might move her to prevent scandalous rumors. Emily sadly acknowledges the truth of the situation while glancing back at the room in silence.
Trying to lighten the mood, Emily gives Hilda a reassuring pat and tells her to cheer up.
Hilda's expression shifts to shock as she mentions her recent encounter with Letitia.
Emily playfully suggests that Hilda's upcoming opportunity is a reward for surviving her visit to the madam's terrifying chambers. Hilda invites Emily to come along, but the red-haired maid declines due to leftover work, promising to join her another time. A rhythmic, steady clip-clop sounds as the horse-drawn carriage carries Hilda toward the bright village outskirts.
Peering out the window, Hilda marvels at the slow pace of her travel in the carriage. She ponders the potential rewards of maximizing interest levels with various characters, specifically wondering what secrets raising Adrian's level might unlock.
Clutching her shopping list, Hilda notes the bustling energy of the village and how different it feels from the quiet estate.
Standing amidst the town's tall buildings, Hilda sets a personal goal to find items that might further increase character interest levels.
While exploring, she spots high-quality mithril swords and maple hardwood pencils, her ears perking up at the mention of such fine goods.
Hilda desperately wants to make a purchase, but the system shows she only has 6 gold pieces, leaving her comically devastated.
Despite her lack of funds, Hilda cries over the beautiful weapons, wishing she could buy them even as simple souvenirs.
A sudden, bitter sound echoes as Hilda remembers her current master needs pillows more than he needs deadly mithril weaponry.
Refocusing on her task, Hilda decides to prioritize the items on Katarina's list and heads toward the general merchandise dealer.
Hilda successfully navigates the shop, ordering a long list of supplies before setting off down the road with her heavy bag.
Her next stop is the butcher, where she manages to acquire various meats and seasonings for the estate kitchen. The butcher kindly offers even more supplies, and Hilda offers a grateful bow before making her exit. The chibi maid determinedly marches along the stone path as a loading notification appears on the screen.
Taking a moment to rest on a bench, Hilda realizes she is struggling because the generous villagers gave her more than she can carry. She recalls the butcher's extreme generosity with a sigh, worried that the extra weight will make her return trip much more difficult.
When the system offers to sell her a larger bag for 30 gold, an irritated Hilda flatly refuses the expensive offer.
A sudden soft sounds as Hilda ponders the strange, overwhelming generosity of the villagers, feeling that something is amiss. She is left speechless as she considers the possibility of the villagers viewing the dark-natured Adrian as an angel.
Hilda learns for the first time that the Count's family saved the village from ruin and provided homes for abandoned children. Narrative text suggests Adrian's suspicious village visits despite his physical frailty.
Hilda observes 2 women discussing their exhaustion and a desire for new bedding.
Her interest is piqued as a sudden, quick X sounds through the air.
The women praise the village store's superior pillows as Hilda continues eavesdropping.
Hilda has a sudden realization about the type of store they mean.
Stunned, she spots the duvet store as a sudden, quick X sounds. A vision of a peaceful, well-appointed bedroom fills the background. Hilda motivates herself to focus on errands and earn gold for her goals.
She tearfully makes her purchase as the shopkeeper offers a cheerful farewell.
A system notification describes the luxurious pillow's ability to provide a refreshed awakening.
Hilda imagines a tombstone for her old pillow while considering her debts.
She mourns her spent money while a sudden, quick clink sounds from her purse. Hilda listens in horror as villagers whisper about a man found with severed wrists. Women debate the incompetence of inspectors and a similar murder from 2 years ago. The villagers emphasize the danger of being outside after dark as the evening approaches. They discuss the terrifying possibility of multiple criminals operating in their small town. Text questions what steps the inspectors will take to address the growing crisis. 2 inspectors discuss their limited options and the need to catch the killer. Chibi villagers nervously wonder how the current wave of terror will resolve. A massive question mark hangs over the group of confused villagers. A sudden soft sounds as a villager notices Hilda lurking nearby. The villagers are shocked to learn that Hilda works at the Count's estate. They praise the Count's kindness and express interest in working at his manor. Hilda finds the conversation awkward as villagers joke about ruined laundry. A sudden quick sounds as a villager attempts to restart the murder gossip. Hilda listens as a villager describes the random and patternless nature of the murders. She watches a figure walk away as the villager calls the estate safe. Text suggests the village's positive sentiment makes Adrian's alleged crimes easier to hide. The narrative notes how public perception helps maintain his facade of innocence.
The locked-up countess and the random murders are framed as connected mysteries.
Adrian stands alone with a knife, questioning if his own paranoia is growing.
Hilda prepares to leave, concluding that her suspicions won't solve any real problems.
Walking through town, Hilda doubts that sickly Adrian could actually be a murderer. A kind man helps an elderly woman who almost tripped nearby. The man checks if she is all right, and she admits she was surprised. Hilda ponders the complexity and independent lives of the characters in this world.
She refocuses on her priority of finding items to raise character interest levels.
A sudden quick step sounds as she marches through the village toward more shops. Hilda's golden eyes widen as she spots an interesting item in a window. Clutching her bag, Hilda wonders if the item she spotted is real. A sudden loud ding sounds as the shopkeeper offers a warm farewell. A sudden quick whoosh sounds as Hilda enters a stationery store for her next errand. Hilda tearfully regrets buying a pencil out of curiosity after leaving. She mourns giving up her pillow money as a sudden quick flash sounds. Hilda decides that increasing Adrian's interest is necessary for her survival and rejects gift dropping. She reminds herself that she is merely a tenant while he is master. The maid walks away from the village shops with her Britain. A sudden soft sigh sounds as she questions her recent life choices. Adrian startles her by asking for a definition of a ripoff from behind. The blonde young master tilts his head and asks a curious question. A sudden quick surprise sounds as Hilda drops her heavy dap.
Adrian asks if she is surprised, explaining he didn't mean to scare her while she was muttering to herself.
The blonde young master apologizes for scaring her while a building stands beneath the bright blue sky.
Adrian asks if she is hurt and offers a hand to help with her heavy luggage.
Hilda stares blankly at Adrian's handsome face until he calls her name, prompting her to insist she is fine.
Adrian notes with a smile that Hilda must really like his face while surrounded by yellow flowers. Adrian wonders if anyone could dislike his face as he looks closely at Hilda. Hilda finds his smile overwhelming, feeling like the bright light is stabbing her eyes. Adrian smiles while noting how genuine Hilda's expressions and thoughts are, surprising her. Adrian asks why Hilda is in the village since she doesn't go out often. Hilda explains her errands while secretly wondering if Adrian is there to commit a murder. Adrian offers his assistance, but Hilda politely tells him not to worry about it. Adrian notes the bag looks heavy, but Hilda credits the villagers' generosity toward the count's estate. Hilda mentions the villagers praised Adrian and called him a fallen angel, casting a wary glance toward him. Adrian repeats the word angel while standing amidst vibrant purple and blue flowers. Hilda nervously worries she said something wrong, comparing her comment to a strange social blunder.
Hilda tries to leave, mentioning she has many more errands to finish before returning home.
Adrian suggests they return to the estate together since her belongings are so heavy.
Hilda protests that he would be delayed by her, but a sudden, sharp clang sounds nearby. Adrian explains he dropped his scissors as the blonde young master reaches down toward the ground. Hilda stares in shock at the object while Adrian mentions he dropped it. Hilda wonders why anyone would carry large gardening scissors in their pocket. A sudden, soft hum sounds as Hilda asks why he carries such a dangerous item. Adrian calls them regular gardening scissors, but Hilda internally screams that it is a murder weapon. Hilda begs him to hand over the scissors so he doesn't accidentally hurt himself. Adrian smiles and asks if Hilda is actually worried about him. Hilda internally rages, screaming that she is actually worried about her own life. Hilda insists that everyone would be sad if he got hurt, reaching out for the dangerous item. Adrian lifts the scissors high above his head to keep them out of Hilda's reach. Adrian claims that because Hilda is weak, it is better if he holds the heavy scissors.
Hilda views Adrian as incredibly despicable, certain he just wants to keep his murder weapon.
Hilda insists the scissors aren't heavy at all, but Adrian refuses to let them go. Adrian points out the bag is the truly heavy item she is carrying. Adrian repeats that he cannot add another heavy object to her burden.
Hilda tries to end the debate about weight and demands he give her the dangerous item. Enraged, Hilda shouts that Adrian should hold the bag while she carries the scissors.
Adrian warns her she'll get hurt, but Hilda spots an opening and lunges for the scissors with a sudden snat sound.
Narrative text celebrates Hilda's success in stealing the weapon from the potential murderer.
Hilda lunges at Adrian beneath the trees and they fall together onto the stone path. Adrian calls out Hilda's name as a sudden quick scuff sounds against the ground.
Adrian tells her that if she wanted the gardening scissors so badly, she should have said so. Adrian repeats his point as he stares directly into Hilda's wide golden eyes. A peaceful village stands by the blue water as the day passes.
A sudden loud jump sounds as Hilda screams and leaps away from the blonde young master.
Hilda dashes away, apologizing and promising to leave with everything except the scissors. Hilda imagines her own death and decides to run away before something terrible happens.
Hilda apologizes for acting without thinking and for interrupting Adrian's outing. Hilda tells him to enjoy his walk and calls out his name one last time. Adrian stands before Hilda once more and tells her to wait.
Adrian offers the scissors back, explaining he was only joking and understands her concerns.
Adrian questions if Hilda is truly comfortable giving him the item, but she notes they are returning to the same estate anyway.
Hilda accepts the task, promising to deliver the items safely to his room.
She decides to tuck the scissors away for now, wondering if the timing is right.
Adrian observes she has finished her shopping and asks about her destination, catching her off guard.
Hilda presents a gift, explaining she bought the pencils specifically with him in mind. She grows anxious when he remains silent, offering to buy something far more extravagant next time to appease him.
Adrian admits he is touched by her thoughtfulness, while a notification confirms his interest has increased significantly.
While she maintains a calm exterior, Hilda's inner self celebrates the successful progress she has made. Driven by survival, Hilda commits to focusing entirely on raising his interest levels as Adrian suggests they depart. She calculates how many pencils her gold can buy, while Adrian presses her on her intended destination.
A carriage rolls through the countryside under the warm glow of a late afternoon sun.
The two sit in silence inside the coach as the scenery passes by the windows.
Hilda laments that Adrian's persistence ruined her chance to meet with Inspector Harrison in secret.
She watches him rest with his eyes closed, attributing his fatigue to his frail physical constitution. A sudden, sharp creak sounds from the carriage, making Hilda freeze in momentary panic.
Attempting to break the tension, Hilda nervously praises the luxury of the vehicle while Adrian watches her.
Adrian suddenly speaks her name, his voice cutting through the quiet interior of the carriage. Hilda stares back with wide, unblinking eyes, her fear written plainly across her face. As a rhythmic tap sounds from his fingers, Adrian asks why she remains terrified of his presence. Hilda makes excuses for her trembling, claiming her difficult life has simply made her more sensitive lately.
She launches into a long-winded explanation of how her financial and work troubles stem from poor sleep.
Adrian notes that the talkative, fearful woman before him is vastly different from the person he once knew. Dark, swirling patterns underscore the reminder of how much her personality has shifted over time. Adrian reflects on his past knowledge of her as a haunting image of flowers looms in the background. He quickly dismisses the thought, noting that it is natural for people's personalities to evolve through life. While Hilda plots her escape to find the inspector, Adrian demands an answer to his earlier inquiry. A single, ominous question about her destination hangs over the darkening interior of the carriage. Adrian asks if there is a specific reason she is keeping her travel plans a secret from him. He suggests she might be heading somewhere he is forbidden from knowing about, his expression unreadable. A sudden, loud knock sounds as the driver announces their arrival at the family estate. The imposing silhouettes of the manor towers rise against a vibrant, orange-streaked sunset sky. A quick open sounds as the carriage door is pulled wide, revealing the path home. Hilda thanks him for the transportation and inquires if he will be exiting the carriage as well. Adrian stays behind to think, requesting that she find the butler to assist him shortly. He adds a soft please, leaving Hilda stunned by his unusually polite behavior toward a servant. Walking away, Hilda finds it jarring that a man who seemed so threatening would speak so politely. As a sudden, rhythmic step sounds against the ground, Hilda realizes Adrian is being patient with her lies. Overwhelming anxiety spreads through her as she recalls his voice, which feels like a lingering poison. Narrative text confirms that the maid has safely retrieved her belongings before departing. Adrian rests his head on his hand, appearing deep in thought while remaining alone in the carriage. His piercing blue eye is shown in a tight, intense focus as he watches her leave. Adrian calls out her name once more, stopping her in her tracks as she walks away. A sudden, sharp whoosh sounds as Hilda asserts that her employment doesn't obligate her to answer everything. Surrounded by the glow of the sunset and blooming roses, Hilda turns back to confront him with her own inquiry. The sky burns with orange clouds as she asks him why he is treating her this way. Adrian questions if her confrontational attitude is simply a reaction to the ride he provided. Hilda points out that he doesn't extend such generosity to any of the other numerous servants at the estate. She doubts his kindness is linked to his interest levels, suspecting he is trying to manipulate her instead. Her golden eyes fix on him with intense scrutiny as she demands to know the reason for his niceness. Beneath a canopy of dark red roses, the narrative brands his behavior as hypocritical and deceptive. Tree leaves sway gently against the backdrop of a fading orange sunset. A sudden low shah sounds as the carriage wheels turn and pull away from the estate. Hilda's long chestnut hair cascades down her back as she stands alone in the twilight. Adrian notes that Hilda possesses a unique ability to leave him completely at a loss for words. The blonde young master admits he would have ignored anyone else and questions the reason for her behavior. Close to the maid, Adrian reminds her of the importance of keeping friends in close proximity. A soft confession of genuine liking hangs in the air amidst the darkening silhouette of branches. Narrative text explains that while commoners celebrate small victories, true enemies require far more calculated treatment. Adrian knocks over a chess piece while reflecting on his desire to keep people close even if he must break them. Adrian begins to walk away, his brown leather shoes clicking softly against the dark ground. A sudden, firm grab sounds as Adrian steadies himself while offering Hilda a knowing, gentle smile. A sudden, soft touch sounds as Adrian grazes Hilda's face, explaining he simply wants to be nice to her. His hand lingers near her collar as white feathers drift through the air under the burning sunset. Adrian points out someone is waiting at her door and advises her to hurry back before leaving for the Meg. A sudden, whistling, windy sound blows through the night as the manor towers loom under the stars. Hilda feels a surge of anxiety as she realizes exactly who has been waiting for her return.
Letitia, the head maid, stands with her arms crossed and demands to know why Hilda is so late.
Letitia fumes with rage while Hilda internally curses the blonde young master for her current predicament. Hilda stammers an explanation about meeting the young master and attempts to flatter the stern head maid. Desperate to appease her superior, Hilda offers a gift and mentions noticing how rough Letitia's hands have become.
Letitia accepts the bribe but warns Hilda that there will be no second chances for such tardiness.
A sudden solid close sounds as Hilda finally enters her room and shuts the door behind her.
Breathing a sigh of relief, the maid celebrates her narrow escape thanks to the timely bribe she provided.
While preparing for bed, Hilda recalls a new skill notification that appeared earlier and decides to investigate it.
A sudden sharp clink sounds as Hilda activates the system and prepares to unlock her new ability.
A sudden sharp ta sounds as a window explains the visionary's eye skill, which highlights dark objects in red.
A sudden soft ponder sounds as Hilda examines the black gardening scissors she took from Adrian.
Hilda wonders why the scissors aren't glowing red as instructed, questioning if the weapon is actually harmless.
She recalls Adrian's voice in the carriage asking if she was curious about why he carried such an item. Adrian acknowledged how suspicious he looked while Hilda remained silent and wary of his true intentions. Adrian explained he wanted to prune the garden himself to comfort his mother, whose health had recently declined.
Looking away, the blonde young master reminisced about planting trees with his mother during his childhood years.
Hilda listened in silence, her expression unreadable as she processed the unexpectedly sentimental story. A sudden digital ding-ding sounds as Hilda realizes Adrian might not be thinking about murder every single moment. Startled by a new noise, Hilda looks around and notices a notification regarding a lucky bag system. A sudden bubbly pop sounds as a gacha machine manifests in the air, thanking her for using the system.
A sudden quick perk sounds as the system invites Hilda to test her luck with 1 free pick per day.
Caught between reason and greed, Hilda is tempted to gamble on luck despite her skepticism toward the game. She questions why a horror game would offer such a friendly feature and wonders if there is a hidden catch. Hilda imagines winning a powerful queen's sword or a godly pillow that would finally grant her a peaceful sleep.
A sudden sharp click sounds as Hilda decides to take the chance and activates the machine.
A sudden rattling roll sounds followed by a loud boom as the gacha machine prepares to deliver her prize. A sudden bright flash sounds as a glowing white feather emerges from the machine and floats into the room. Hilda stares in awe at the radiant, shimmering item, wondering if she has actually succeeded. Surrounded by golden light, Hilda wonders if she truly managed to draw a hero item on her very first pull.
She recalls the painful days of being struck with weeds by the furious head maid during her chores.
The image of Adrian with glowing blue eyes reminds her of the constant terror she felt in his presence.
Hilda reflects on the many sleepless nights she endured simply because she lacked a proper pillow to rest on.
Overcome with emotion, the maid's eyes well up as she begins to feel a glimmer of hope.
A sudden soft teary sound escapes Hilda as she looks forward to a better life with her new prize. Holding the glowing feather, Hilda feels a sudden rush of hope.
A sudden sharp ding sounds as she receives a useless weeg. The system confirms her prize is worthless and starts a timer. A sudden digital blip sounds as her surroundings begin to shift. Staring at the tiny grass, she realizes her luck has failed. Hilda screams in rage while cursing the system for its cruelty.
The red-haired maid checks on Hilda during her 3-day illness.
A sudden rhythmic step sounds as someone walks through the manor.
Carrying medicine, Hilda lets out a long, weary sigh of relief.
A sudden digital ding sounds as Hilda reviews her Go. The visionary's eye allows her to detect a person's dark intent.
She notes the skill's limitations regarding covered or safe household items.
Hilda plans to use the skill to survive Adrian's hidden mass. She resolves to use this chance to eliminate potential murder weapons. Her goal is to rid the master's room of all dangers. Arriving at the door, she announces the young master's daily medicine.
A sudden quiet clinch sounds as she enters Adrian's private room.
A sudden soft open sounds as Hilda cautiously enters the master's suite.
Hilda freezes in surprise upon seeing an unexpected guest visiting Adrian. A sudden jovial laugh sounds from the corner of the room. An older man greets Hilda warmly while Adrian watches from bed.
The gray-haired man asks how she has been after her absence. Confused, Hilda stares at the man while trying to recognize him.
The visitor stands by the window, appearing very familiar with her.
He notes that her appearance hasn't changed much over the years.
The man apologizes for his delay and thanks her for her service.
Placing the tray down, Hilda manages a polite but hesitant response. He affectionately calls her a troublemaker despite her recent good work. A sudden soft pat sounds as he recalls her childhood marriage wishes. He laughs about her past tantrums to get engaged to Adrian. The doctor reveals that she once insisted on sharing Adrian's bed. Adrian asks for clarification on when these embarrassing events took place. Hilda internally begs him to stop as her face turns purple. Desperate to change the subject, she offers to return an item. A sudden nervous fidget sounds as she prepares to return the scissors. Hilda places the black scissors onto the tray with a clower. Adrian stares at the returned garden tool with a blank expression. The young master notes his surprise that she's returning his property. Adrian accuses her of previously wanting to dispose of the scissors.
He bluntly asks what about his presence makes her so terrified.
Fear grips Hilda as she remains silent under Adrian's intense gaze. Accepting the return, Adrian notes there are other ways to learn.
A sudden, sharp glance sounds as Adrian addresses the older visitor.
The gray-haired man turns back toward Adrian with a pleasant expression.
Dr. Hubert suggests a walk in the garden to discuss private matters.
Hilda offers her assistance to help Adrian prepare for the walk.
Adrian thanks her as he begins to move on back. The blonde master puts on a coat for the outdoor excursion. Adrian claims his heart races whenever he catches sight of her.
Hilda stares back in shock at his sudden and unsettling confession.
Adrian explains that certain behaviors are improper and problematic if witnessed by others. The blonde master trusts that Hilda's intelligence will allow her to understand.
Blushing intensely, the maid remains completely speechless in the wake of his words.
Hilda throws a furious tantrum while rejecting the young master as a murderer.
Panting on the floor, she curses the man while begrudgingly acknowledging his looks.
A vivid memory of Adrian's touch resurfaces as Hilda reflects on their encounter. She recalls how he intentionally keeps her in an unsettlingly close, intimate proximity.
Attempting to calm down, Hilda blames her past self for choosing the blonde master.
A close-up of Adrian's smile accompanies her realization that she is a different person.
Hilda stares at the furniture while resolving to focus on her immediate goal.
A sudden, quick clap sounds as Hilda walks toward the door with determination. Standing by the window, the maid resolves to complete her original secret mission.
Bright sunlight illuminates the manor's grand fountain and lush, blooming garden scenery.
Dr. Hubert observes that the estate's atmosphere has become noticeably bright and lively.
Adrian expresses his sincere gratitude to the physician for his successful medical treatments.
A sudden, firm grab sounds as Adrian appreciates his restored ability to walk. The blonde young master carefully examines a red rose while reflecting on his recovery.
A dark, heavy shadow briefly shifts the mood of the pleasant garden conversation. Adrian's hand rests upon a book as the scene transitions to a moment of silence.
Hubert calls out to the young master after noticing he has become lost in thought.
Adrian apologizes for his distraction while the doctor confirms he looks healthy. Looking up with clear blue eyes, Adrian mentions he has a question for Hubert.
Hilda walks through a dark floral void as the narrative tension shifts toward Adrian.
Above the manor towers, Adrian asks the doctor if he has noticed Hilda changing. Standing among the roses, Hubert admits he hasn't noticed anything different about the maid. Adrian considers if he is mistaken, recalling his mother's frequent claims about his character.
The rose garden serves as the backdrop for Adrian's reflections on his mother's hysteria.
Hubert notes that the Countess's hallucinations returned while he was away from the estate.
The physician recalls the Countess's former sincerity and her deep love for her child.
Hubert explains how she became blinded by superstition and labeled her own son evil. A close-up of Adrian's vacant gaze reflects the weight of his mother's cruel accusations.
Adrian reveals that his mother recently ransacked his room while calling him a devil. A sudden soft reach sounds as Adrian explains how repeated lies eventually become truth.
Hubert reassures the young master that no one believes the Countess's wild, superstitious words. A sudden, gentle fall sounds as Adrian asks if he truly looks like Satan. Dr. Hubert looks at the young master, admitting there is still one lingering question.
He questions the scientific logic behind the belief that holy water can burn devils.
Hubert dismisses the story as ridiculous, suggesting someone likely tampered with the water.
Narrative text describes a myth regarding a powerful figure who judges the entire world.
Hubert emphasizes the necessity of using logical judgment to see the truth beyond myths.
Intricate architectural patterns are framed by the deep red of the garden's lush leaves.
The gray-haired man defines this pursuit of truth as a proper research scholar's attitude. A sudden jolly ha-ha sounds as the doctor laughs about his primary medical profession. Adrian requests Hubert's assistance so they may continue their walk through the grounds. The two men walk together past the grand architecture under the bright morning sun.
Roses bloom in the foreground as Adrian notes the strangeness of their current situation.
Adrian questions the doctor's unwavering belief that he is not actually a demonic being. Hubert reminds the blonde young master of the unique treatment he once provided him. The doctor explains that just like his other patients, Adrian requires a unique approach. A sudden steady step sounds as Hubert expresses absolute certainty in the young master.
Emily, a maid with a long red braid, asks Hilda if she has slept in again.
Hilda realizes with a start that her current situation is definitely a horror gang.
Emily urges Hilda to get ready quickly to avoid being scolded by the head maid.
As Hilda looks away, a mysterious and dark shadowy hand reaches toward her. Emily kindly offers to deliver Master Adrian's medicine herself so that Hilda can rest. A thud sounds as Hilda sits amidst numerous floating game status and quest windows.
Hilda finds it absolutely insane that she has been transported specifically into a horror game.
Closing her eyes tightly, Hilda wishes she were in any other genre of game. A decorative floral frame highlights her desperate longing for a heartwarming dating simulator instead. Wah! Chibi Hilda wails for handsome men while standing beneath the beautiful castle spires. A taxidermy deer head stares from the wall of a grand, quiet castle hallway.
The silhouette of a slender blonde man stands motionless by a bright, distant window.
Master Adrian, with striking blonde hair and glowing blue eyes, smiles amidst dark flowers. A system notification confirms that Hilda has successfully obtained a new maid uniform.
A tiny, expressionless version of Hilda appears dressed in her gray and white outfit.
Hilda grumbles that her new role as a maid was not her free choice.
Master Adrian rests among flowers, looking pale and sickly, but undeniably handsome and striking.
Hilda observes the castle sky, noting that the game is terrible despite Diel.
The brown-haired maid carries a tray while weeping over her unfortunate and difficult fate.
While checking her reflection, Hilda notes the RPG mechanics, including experience points and skills.
Hilda performs mundane tasks while dreading the sickly killer of a master she serves.
Looking up at the sky, Hilda acknowledges the art team's impressive work on backgrounds.
She pumps her fist, deciding to treat the day's manual labor as a quest.
Chibi versions of Hilda and Emily walk together along a stone garden path. A banner encourages Hilda to work as the two maids carry their garden baskets.
Hilda pulls a single weed and is rewarded with 1 experience point.
A system alert flashes, questioning a sudden and unexpected change in Hilda's current condition. Hilda earns a golden trophy for successfully becoming a weed-pulling expert.
Determined, Hilda decides to grind for money, her most important resource in this world.
Hilda pulls weeds at high speed, leaving the red-haired Emily in a state of shock.
The head maid screams Hilda's name in a sudden burst of extreme anger.
Smack! The head maid scolds Hilda for accidentally destroying the Count's cherished flowers.
A whole bouquet of destroyed flowers lies on the ground under an RIP sign.
The head maid docks Hilda's daily wage as punishment for her clumsy mistakes.
Shing! Hilda wonders if that painful strike was actually a critical hit from the system.
Nearby maids whisper to each other, mocking Hilda for being foolish and causing trouble.
The head maid orders the loitering girls to get back to work immediately. The gossiping maids complain that Hilda keeps causing accidents and creating extra work. Hilda thinks to herself that at least she works hard while the others secretly slack.
She dismisses the other maids as mere strings of digital data and computer code.
Cold, abstract patterns emphasize the artificial nature of the game's characters and world. Hilda thinks to herself that Emily is the only one who hasn't done anything wrong.
Hilda apologizes to Emily for causing her to get into trouble as well.
Emily smiles warmly, insisting that she should have looked around more carefully herself.
Hilda is visibly touched by Emily's genuine kindness and bright, supportive expression.
The two tiny maids carry their heavy baskets to report their progress to Letitia. Back in her nightgown, Hilda watches several game loading bars slowly fill up.
Hilda is horrified to see her gold possession suddenly drop to only 80 coins. She imagines herself being exploited by the system like a raccoon being wrung dry.
Pang! Hilda punches the system menu, raging at the unfair game developers and companies.
A dark thought bubble declares that murder is the only perfect cure, while a pale hand reaches toward a shadow.
Narration describes the Count's Estate Medical Center, where the deaths of terminal patients revitalize the young master with vitality.
Dr. Hubert explains that every death in the estate results in a noticeable improvement in the young master's lingering sickness.
The physician justifies the treatments as a scientific decision rather than fear of groundless devil accusations or holy water.
Standing in the garden, Hubert recalls the specific day he first provided the blonde young master with his unique treatment.
A golden memory shows the young blonde boy with his eyes closed, bathed in a warm and radiant light.
Panels show Hubert treating the bedridden boy while resolving to fulfill this as his final mission as a dedicated physician. Adrian thanks the doctor, who replies that fulfilling the treatment is simply this old man's final wish and pleasure. Pausing in the garden, the physician mentions that there was another matter he intended to discuss with the young master.
Hubert warns that a person whose life is on borrowed time may be appearing on the manor grounds very soon.
The gray-haired man notes that local inspectors are currently on high alert following several recent homicides in the village.
Adrian questions if they can avoid detection, leading Hubert to contrast their former absolute power with their current situation.
A sinister shadow crosses Hubert's face as he assures Adrian that using his special glove prevents any evidence from appearing.
Walking away together, Adrian agrees to trust the physician and looks forward to receiving his next lethal medical treatment.
The scene shifts to a wide landscape of the grand estate silhouetted against a vibrant orange sunset sky.
In the evening light, Hubert bids Adrian farewell, while offering his constant availability should the young master need anything.
The physician pauses at the door, turning back to address the blonde young master with a pleasant and calm expression.
Hubert reassures Adrian that he shouldn't concern himself too much with the maid's recent behavior or potential worries.
A sudden jolly laugh sounds as Hubert jokes about the natural progression of romantic relationships between grown men and women.
The doctor asserts that Hilda is intelligent enough to know her place and isn't seeking a relationship with him.
A soft chuckle follows as the physician dismisses any concerns about the nature of the brown-haired maid's intentions.
A sudden quiet close sounds followed by a soft step as the hand turns the knob and shuts the door.
A sudden soft step sounds as the blonde young master stands alone in the center of his private room.
A sudden firm stand sounds as Adrian remains still in the quiet twilight of his suite.
Looking down from above, Adrian views the physician as a useful and proactive pawn with an intelligent, unconditional commitment.
Adrian's intense blue eyes reveal his calculation as he wonders how much longer he can utilize Hubert's specialized services.
Exhausted, the blonde master collapses onto his bed with his hand resting across his forehead in deep thought.
A sudden quick slip sounds as Adrian reaches into his pocket while lying on top of the covers.
Holding a simple stick, Adrian muses that he likes its crude nature because it reminds him specifically of Hilda. Adrian wonders why he is so fascinated by a maid who resists his hypnosis and fears simple garden tools. Turning his head slightly, the young master concludes that something is definitely suspicious regarding the maid's recent erratic behavior.
A sudden, light slip sounds as Adrian considers if his growing suspicions might actually be groundless and unnecessary.
Feathers drift through the air as Adrian attempts to follow Hubert's advice and stop worrying about the maid's actions.
Looking at his desk, Adrian realizes his gloves, fountain pen, and personal history book have all gone missing recently.
Adrian realizes someone intentionally removed items that indicate his murderous intent and softly whispers Hilda's name in realization. A silent, empty corner of the room features a small wooden bookshelf standing beneath a framed picture. A sudden, rhythmic rustle sounds as someone's feet appear near a pile of scattered books and pens on the floor.
A sudden, weary sigh sounds as Hilda sits on the floor, hoping she has taken enough potential weapons.
Ominous red light fills the room as Hilda curses Adrian's evil nature and the demonic atmosphere surrounding the young master.
Her wide, bright green eyes reflect her intense shock and realization as she looks at her immediate surroundings.
A system notification identifies the stolen gloves as an ancient magical object designed to leave no trace of its use.
A sudden, sharp shock sounds as Hilda realizes the terrifying implications of an ancient and untraceable magical murder weapon.
Sitting on the floor, Hilda recognizes these gloves are the key to Adrian's perfect and trace-free killing spree.
A dark vision shows a silhouetted killer standing over victims, confirming Adrian's lack of motive and physical evidence.
A sudden, loud shout sounds as someone calls Hilda's name while she clutches the dark magical gloves in fear. The head maid screams for Hilda, accusing her of being late for the afternoon window cleaning chores again.
A sudden, tearful shriek sounds as Hilda frantically responds to the head maid that she is on her way.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Hilda reflects on her strategic choice to steal the true magical murder weapons. Looking through the trees at sunset, Hilda wonders if Adrian will punish her for interfering with his murderous game.
Hilda resolves that even if Adrian brushes it off, her actions have benefited every person living in the manor.
The grand manor towers stand tall against the dark night sky.
From the shadows of his room, Adrian calls out Hilda's name.
Startled, Hilda thinks to herself that she didn't expect him to call her this quickly.
Adrian apologizes for the late hour while Hilda asks how she may help. Resting his hand on the sill, Adrian mentions that several important belongings have disappeared from his room.
A sudden soft lift sounds as Adrian dismisses Hilda's feigned concern, stating that isn't the case.
Adrian tells the maid he is not asking a question and demands she bring them back.
A sudden firm grip sounds as Adrian identifies Hilda as the thief with an intense gaze. Standing by the window, the blonde young master admits he doesn't want to raise his hand at her. Adrian tells Hilda not to test his patience as she looks away with wide eyes.
A sudden deep gulp sounds as Hilda realizes the young master is being surprisingly straightforward.
Panicked, Hilda wonders what happens if she dies in this game and if she would return home.
A sudden, sharp jump sounds as the brown-haired maid stands frozen and trembling before him.
Looking downcast, Hilda apologizes and claims to be suffering from severe narcolepsy-like symptoms.
Standing across from her, Adrian demands the immediate return of the precious items she stole regardless of why. The blonde young master realizes Hilda is playing a game but asserts his control over her.
A sudden, tight rustle sounds as Hilda realizes she has no cards left to play.
Turning away, the brown-haired maid begins apologizing for the matter concerning his missing possessions. With a bold look, Hilda asks the young master if he has any proof she stole them. Adrian leans forward slightly, asking the maid what she just said to him. Hilda argues that he is forgetting his place and that she could forge proof for anything she wanted. She questions why she would be so obvious about stealing his things when she is his personal maid. A sudden, soft boing sounds as Hilda suggests they ignore what happened, knowing words are useless. Hilda challenges him, claiming she knows how to use the system to her advantage as a player. Hilda considers her options, thinking that if she cannot leave, she can force the game to restart. Looming over him, the maid defiantly asks if she ever requested his garbage consideration. Adrian is stunned as Hilda tells him to forge evidence or search every corner of his room. A sudden sharp tap sounds as Adrian's hand rests still while Hilda tells him to do as he pleases. Smiling manically, the green-eyed maid calls the blonde young master an evil, satanic bastard. A sudden loud A sounds as the weight of Hilda's insults fills the silent room. Adrian stands in total shock, his blue eyes wide as the maid's words echo around him. A sudden quick ah sounds as Hilda's smile falters, realizing the magnitude of her outburst. Adrian remains perfectly still in the quiet twilight of his suite. A system notification warns that a new game cannot start while a story is in progress. The warning repeats as a dark glitch effect begins to spread across the screen. Hilda gasps in realization as she stares at her own trembling hand. Adrian's intense gaze remains fixed on the maid while she stands frozen in place. The two remain at a distance in the large moonlit bedroom.
A sudden soft falter sounds as Hilda wonders why the game UI activated.
A sudden sharp jump sounds as Adrian asks Hilda where she is going. Hilda claims her narcolepsy caused the outburst, while Adrian asks if it made her call him satanic.
Hilda silly dances while claiming she sleep talks horrible things according to Emily. Adrian looks at the maid and tells her he remembered every single word she said. He tells her that her lies are improving, mocking her excuse about Emily.
A sudden bright ding sounds as Hilda explains narcolepsy memory loss varies.
A sudden bright ding sounds as Hilda notes the new UI warnings about her actions. A red system alert warns that she will die if she doesn't decrease his intent.
Adrian walks toward her, asking if she has anything else to say.
A sudden heavy thump sounds as Hilda sweats under the master's cold gaze. A sudden steady step sounds as Adrian's murderous intent increases to 67%.
Adrian notes that the maid must have also believed those particular rumors as his murderous intent reaches 76%.
Panicked, Hilda frantically denies it while claiming she only mentioned the matter to praise his exceptional good looks.
A sudden rhythmic step sounds as Hilda rambles about how the young master is devilishly handsome and outstanding while his intent hits 80%.
The maid continues her desperate lie, claiming she told Emily that the blonde master is so handsome he could hypnotize anyone.
A sudden sharp hit sounds as the brown-haired maid continues her nervous babbling in the dark room. Hilda's internal thoughts drift to the idea that he might be tolerable if he wasn't such a monster. The two stand in tense silence as the cool moonlight spills across the bedroom floor.
Leaning in close, Adrian asks why she is staring and warns her that she doesn't know what he is capable of.
Adrian's hand reaches toward her face as he menacingly asks if he should cover her eyes.
A system notification shows Adrian's intent at 87% as he asks why she chose to steal those specific items. Looking cold, Adrian states he doesn't need to know her reasons because he can simply kill her as his intent reaches 91%.
Hilda's green eyes go wide with terror as she realizes the young master is genuinely prepared to end her life.
Panicking, Hilda wonders how she can possibly lower his murderous intent when no excuse will work. Looking down from above, the maid realizes there is only one desperate gamble left for her to try. A sudden tight squeeze sounds as Hilda grabs the young master's shirt, knowing her plan is absolutely reckless.
Close to his neck, the brown-haired maid cries out to the master in a high-pitched voice.
Hilda defiantly shouts that she won't hold back anymore either if he continues to threaten her.
In a surreal moment, Hilda tightly embraces Adrian as cartoonish birds fly around the stunned pair.
Stunned, Adrian admits that the maid truly has a unique talent for leaving him completely at a loss for words. A sudden firm grab sounds as Adrian asks what she plans to do while Hilda resolves to stand her ground.
Their feet shift on the dark floor as the intensity of the embrace increases.
A sudden soft hug sounds as Hilda clings to the blonde young master with all her might. Adrian's single blue eye reflects his total shock at the maid's sudden physical affection. Buried against him, Hilda thinks it's a crazy thought, but notices that he feels warm, like a real human being.
A sudden soft sniff sounds as Hilda realizes she recognizes the pleasant scent clinging to the young master.
A sudden sharp startle sounds as Hilda identifies the scent of roses and Adrian lets out a confused shout.
A sudden quick push sounds as Adrian shoves the maid away and demands to know what she is doing.
A sudden heavy cough sounds as Adrian collapses while Hilda apologizes and the master notes he pushed her first. Adrian continues to struggle, his face pale as a series of violent coughs rack his entire body.
A sudden heavy pant sounds as a system alert warns that Adrian's chronic asthma has been triggered.
A sudden ragged wheeze sounds as the blonde young master clutches his chest and gasps for air.
Hilda asks if he is okay, claiming she only got close because of his handsome face, while a new alert identifies a triggered migraine.
A sudden heavy cough sounds as Adrian tells Hilda not to move while his murderous intent drops to 60%. A sudden heavy cough sounds as the master demands she stay still, and his intent plummets to 42%. Hilda realizes her desperate hug worked perfectly and feels relieved that she is safe for the moment. A sudden heavy cough sounds as Hilda watches Adrian's body shake from a respiratory attack she fears is ripping him apart.
The brown-haired maid looks on in genuine concern and calls out to the suffering young master.
Bright clouds drift over the grand estate's towers during the peaceful daylight hours. Adrian sits up in his large canopy bed while Hilda sits quietly on a chair by his side. Adrian lets out a weary sigh as the morning light illuminates history.
Looking at a pile of papers, Adrian admits he may have pushed the maid too far during their confrontation.
Adrian laughs, joking that a normal maid wouldn't touch his things, while Hilda feels guilty for also hugging and robbing him. Hilda looks down solemnly and tells the young master that he is absolutely right about her behavior. Standing before the bookshelves, the brown-haired maid offers a sincere apology for her past actions.
Looking away, Hilda insists that she never intended for things to escalate to such a dangerous level.
A top-down view shows Hilda sitting alone on a small stool, reflecting on her narrow escape.
Adrian rests his head on his pillow, looking exhausted from his recent medical episode.
A sudden, sharp shock sounds as Adrian tells the maid he won't ask any further questions about why she stole his belongings.
Adrian promises he won't go back on his word while a small note highlights Hilda's intense feelings of guilt.
Adrian tells the maid he will forgive her entirely if she simply returns the items to their original places. Hilda gasps in sudden shock as the reality of her situation sinks him.
Adrian demands that every single one of the items she took be returned immediately.
Looking cold, Adrian states he won't hear a single excuse for her theft.
Adrian invites her to find him any time while Hilda inwardly vows never to. Adrian dismisses the dejected maid, telling her she can return to her work.
Hilda realizes she can't take the items back, specifically wanting the black gloves.
Hilda points and asks if she can please keep his gloves as a memento. Rubbing his head, Adrian tells Hilda he knows she's being incredibly shameless.
A sudden flinch sounds as Hilda nervously claims she is too embarrassed to explain.
Looking downcast, Hilda prepares to reveal a secret she claims to be holding.
With wide green eyes, Hilda claims that body odor is her specific kink.
A sudden lift sounds as she holds a glove, claiming his scent stole her sanity.
A sudden sniff sounds as Hilda performs a dramatic, ritualistic inhalation.
Hilda continues her performance, claiming the gloves are perfectly saturated with his unique scent. Hilda begs to keep the gloves while Adrian stares at her with total disbelief.
Adrian stares blankly, realizing he finally knows why she stole his personal belongings. Adrian concludes she is a pervert as she continues her rhythmic sniffing ritual. Adrian agrees to her request, making the confused maid his only personal attendee.
Hilda argues that liking his scent is different from liking him as a person.
Hilda claims she will accept any punishment later for touching his personal belongings. The maid considers various ways she might repay him for her grave mistakes. Hilda considers cleaning the stables, but a system window labels her a smelly worker. She considers window cleaning, but a system notification labels the job as dangerous.
Adrian cuts her off, informing the maid that her new duties begin tomorrow.
Adrian welcomes the maid's care until she resolves her supposed feelings for him.
Adrian suggests he has something much better than gloves for her to smell.
A sudden creak sounds as a wooden door is pushed slightly open.
Standing in the hallway, Hilda is told to take the master's bathrobe instead.
Adrian gives his bathrobe to his main maid while his present swims. A large white text box screams that this situation cannot be happening.
Hilda wails in despair as the sun shines brightly over the grand estate.
A system window shows Hilda's evolution into the Devil's Diligent Level 10 pawn.
Bright sunlight illuminates the tall blue roof towers of the massive castle estate.
Warm sunlight streams onto a pair of books resting on a white table. A close-up shows a cup of tea as a voice notes no clans.
Adrian sits at a table and notes the variety of tastes available to them.
A sudden clatter sounds as Adrian praises the tea the maid just prepared. Hilda considers the master ordinary while he ponders a better ratio for the tea.
Adrian considers adding vanilla while Hilda offers to go and fetch some for him.
A close-up shows the blonde young master smiling as he says her name. Adrian tells the stunned maid she can sit down if she feels tired. Hilda frantically declines his offer and thanks his generosity while he drinks tea.
Looking downcast, Hilda considers her empty wages and her new constant proximity to Adrian. Other maids gossip nearby, questioning why a useless kid like her is his personal maid.
A red-haired maid with star-filled eyes exclaims how incredibly jealous she is. A dark thought bubble insists there is absolutely nothing to be jealous of. Hilda brings Adrian his medication while noting that her life is surprisingly mundane. Adrian invites the exhausted maid to smell the roses during their quiet garden walk.
Hilda struggles through a boring classical music session with the smiling master.
A dark cloud emphasizes that no one should ever be jealous of her.
Chibi Hilda is labeled as the devil's pawn for performing various chores. She rants about being a working imp and tells the other maids they can do her job if they are so jealous, while Adrian calls out her name.
Adrian leans in close to the brown-haired maid and asks her why she continues to stare at his face. The two characters stand in silent contemplation during the bright daylight hours.
Adrian remarks that she has finally snapped out of it, admitting he thought she was sleeping while standing upright again.
Adrian notes she looks more tired than usual while the startled maid gasps and claims she hasn't managed to do anything yet.
Amidst a background of whimsical bears and pearls, Hilda's internal thoughts scream that she was simply staring because she was confused by the master's brilliant beauty.
Hilda dramatically claims she is infatuated with him and that anyone blessed to see him so closely would lose their senses, while Adrian bluntly tells her that is enough. Adrian suggests she is so free that she has time to appreciate his face, mentioning he originally planned to give her a break.
A sudden lift sounds as Adrian hands the maid an ordinary pencil and tells her to take it. Hilda looks on in confusion.
Adrian instructs the maid to sharpen the pencil as sharp as possible while Hilda submissively agrees. Hilda wonders if he carried the pencil in his pocket all along, noting he could have any luxury item but kept an ordinary pencil instead. Hilda admits she is surprised that the young master would care about an act of kindness, while a system alert confirms the pencil sharpening was successful. Standing over the table, Hilda asks if the sharpening is enough while Adrian thanks her and says it is good.
Hilda offers to continue sharpening all his pencils while Adrian admits he would be thankful for such a service.
Hilda asks if he needs anything else, but inwardly panics, wondering if he is making her create murder weapons since a rich master shouldn't carry a cheap pencil. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Adrian states it is about time, and the maid quietly agrees.
A sudden clear ding sounds as a system notification announces that Visionary's eye has been activated.
Adrian's single blue eye observes the brown-haired maid in close-up.
Adrian asks the maid if she is feeling less tired now, and she quietly confirms that she is.
The blonde young master sits and carefully examines the sharpened pencil.
Hilda energetically claims she will find more things to do on her own since she has recovered her energy. Adrian laughs at her enthusiasm.
Adrian tells the maid she can do whatever she wants as long as she doesn't secretly take anything, while Hilda enthusiastically agrees.
Looking at the bookshelves, Hilda notices everything is stained red and realizes no other items appear to be missing.
Hilda points out a specific item and asks the young master what it is.
A close-up shows purple flowers that have completely wilted and turned brown.
Adrian explains that Dr. Hubert gave him the flowers late last night, noting that they are too wilted to recognize now.
Looking through the window, Hilda notes the doctor's gift is overflowing with evil intent and wonders why she hasn't heard of any deaths yet, while Adrian asks about the plant.
Hilda nervously claimed she thought the plant was pretty and that it completely changes the atmosphere of the dark room.
Adrian notes he doesn't know what she finds pretty because the flowers died the moment they entered the room. Hilda suggests the plant didn't get enough sunlight and insists that she can save it with proper nutrients and care. A sudden firm close sounds as Adrian shuts his book and tells the maid not to waste her time.
Hilda looks on in shock as Adrian insists it is no use regardless of what she tries to do. Adrian tells her to just leave it, while Hilda reflects on how the master truly loves nature despite being a monster.
Bright sunlight illuminates the trees as Hilda notes Adrian suffers from asthma and coughing fits that keep him from the garden.
A bottle of pills spills out as Hilda considers how miserable it must be for a devil to be trapped in a weak body.
Looking out the window, the maid considers that Adrian's murderous intent likely stems from a life where he cannot enjoy what he likes.
The master's shadow lies on the floor, surrounded by an oppressive red aura. Hilda recalls Adrian in the sunlight accepting a present without ulterior motives.
Looking out at the clear sky, the brown-haired maid resolves to try and save the wilted plant.
Holding the wilted plant, Hilda tells Adrian she will take responsibility for saving it as his personal maid, while Adrian asks what she means.
The brown-haired maid looks forward with a gaze of intense, unwavering determination.
Looking down from above, the blonde master lets out a weary sigh at the maid's stubbornness.
Looking resigned, Adrian asks how he could possibly win against her and agrees to let her try.
A sudden soft open sounds as Hilda carries the plant out of the suite and into the hallway.
A sudden double ding sounds as Hilda realizes that decreasing his murderous intent will also decrease her own probability of death.
Looking down the hall, Hilda notices his interest level increased and wonders if it was because of the thought she put into the plant rather than the gift itself.
Hilda admits she wasn't going to try very hard, but decides to put in the effort since the master responded to her feelings.
The brown-haired maid walks through the sunlit hallway cradling the potted prat. Sunlight streams through the window onto the plant resting on a small table.
Adrian sits alone by the window as bright daylight fills the grand room. Sunlight glints off the blonde young master's golden hair.
The elegant young master looks off into the distance thoughtfully.
Bright sunlight illuminates the grand towers of the massive estate.
Hilda lets out a weary sigh while working as the devil's diligent pawn.
An oppressive, wavy background emphasizes that she is tired as hell.
Hilda considers the estate a terrible company after her emotionally taxing morning.
Looking out the window, Hilda wonders why Emily hasn't returned yet.
Emily apologizes for being late because the water bucket was heady.
Emily insists the extra work is payment for the delicious coffee.
A system notification asks if Hilda wants to add Emily to her interest list. Hilda feels happy about potentially increasing her interest list capacity later.
Two generic maids go about their daily chores in the estate. Leveling up allows her to ask established characters for various favors. A record displays the current interest levels for Adrian, Emily, and Priscilla.
A pink heart appears over Emily, who has the lowest interest level.
Specific difficulty ratings are revealed for Adrian, Emily, and Priscilla. Hilda wonders if the hardworking Emily will truly be useful to her.
Hilda asks Emily to clean the windows with energy and no rest.
Emily eagerly offers to handle the window cleaning for Hilda instead.
A sudden sharp turn sounds as Hilda tries to stop a friend.
The helpful maid walks away to begin her newly assigned task.
Looking down at her boots, Hilda admits she felt some discomfort.
The brown-haired maid concludes that the feeling must be just her.
A sudden double ding sounds as the system confirms Emily's hard work.
Hilda ignores a slacking maid who is clearly avoiding her duties. She avoids another maid, fearing she might get stabbed by her.
Hilda realizes that none of the other maids look particularly nice.
A boy in a cap suddenly calls out her name from outside. A freckled boy in a newsboy cap asks if she is Hilda.
Isaac exclaims how long it has been since their last meeting.
Isaac mentions she's the center of rumors and asks what happened.
Hilda politely asks if there is a specific reason for his visit.
Isaac laughs about rumors that she might become the next countess.
Hilda offers the young visitors some fresh coffee to drink first.
A sudden smooth sip sounds as the boy drinks the coffee.
A sudden ding sounds as Isaac's interest level increases by 50. Hilda is shocked by how fast his interest increased from coffee. Isaac offers to deliver letters, packages, and gossip for free.
He adds that he can even purchase items with her money.
Hilda considers increasing Adrian's interest by buying him a luxury pencil.
The maid believes a luxury gift will increase his interest levels significantly.
Hilda asks Isaac to buy around 16 luxury pencils for her.
Isaac agrees to bring the pencils during his next estate visit.
A cheerful wave accompanies Isaac's departure from the grand estate towers.
Hilda reflects on how quickly she managed to recruit someone helpful.
She realizes Isaac will be a perfect source of external information.
Hilda notes her fortune has dropped back down to 10 gold.
The maid considers how to increase the Countess's interest next. A tray holds a white teapot, tea, and 2 small sandwiches. A booming shout warns her never to dream about going out.
Hilda stops in the hall, hearing a sudden, curious sound.
Recognizing the Countess's room, the maid wonders about a sudden ruckus.
Nervous murmurs drift from behind the heavy, ornate wooden door.
Whispers fill the hallway as Hilda is told to stop talking.
A sudden sharp ring sounds as a maid carries a decaying animal.
An audible, disgusted ugh sounds as Hilda smells a terrible rot.
A sudden steady step sounds as someone approaches with a cane.
Hilda stands frozen in the hallway as the heavy steps approach.
A sudden firm stop sounds as a man stands before Hilda. A tall man with a monocle and beard looks down sternly. The massive hallway dwarfs the small maid and the formidable man.
Hilda wonders why the high-status man seems familiar, like a game character.
A sudden sharp breath sounds as the man looks at the maid. A system notification reveals he is the Count and estate honor.
A sudden clear ding sounds as Hilda considers adding Lurik to her list.
A sudden rhythmic step sounds as Hilda decides to recruit the Count.
A sudden intense glare sounds as Hilda plans to use him against Adrian.
A sudden brief pause sounds as Hilda bows deeply for the Count.
A sudden quiet gasp sounds as the maid realizes her mistake.
A sudden soft rustle sounds as the Count walks toward the room. Hilda regrets missing the chance to add him to her list.
The maid considers whether she should have chased after the rare character.
A sudden, deliberate step sounds as Hilda heads for the Countess's door.
A sudden, careful peek sounds as Hilda looks into the room.
The brown-haired maid looks on in shock at the scene inside.
Broken furniture and a dark stain cover the once elegant room's floor. A sudden, heavy sigh sounds as Hilda hesitates before the mess.
Approaching the blonde woman, Hilda quietly calls out to her mistress.
Hilda worries about the pale Countess who hasn't eaten anything yet.
A sudden, low mutter sounds as Priscilla begs for her baby back.
Feeling sympathy, the maid resolves to calm the grieving blonde mind.
Hilda promises the goat was only taken away to rest for now.
Priscilla stares silently, her eyes hollow with grief and suspicion.
A sudden, cheerful exclamation sounds as Hilda reassures her mistress.
The maid suggests eating some snacks before the goat is returned.
Priscilla reluctantly agrees to eat after the maid's gentle persuasion. A sudden, pleasant ding sounds as Hilda gives Priscilla coffee and biscuits.
Priscilla feels better while Hilda focuses on increasing her interest level.
A sudden, triumphant ding sounds as Priscilla's interest level increases significantly. The blonde woman is touched that someone finally cares for her.
A map highlights several locations, including the temple where Hilda grew. A sudden mystical sound sounds as the temple's holy water is mentioned. A sudden happy laugh sounds as Priscilla accepts the maid's offer.
A sudden quick step sounds as Hilda plans a trip to the Cumble. A sudden sharp crack sounds as Hilda promises to make a doll.
A sudden cold chill sounds as Priscilla realizes she was tricked.
Dark thoughts fill the room as Priscilla calls Adrian a parasite. A sudden mad laugh sounds as Priscilla claims Satan is posing as human. A sudden manic ha sounds as the blonde woman descends into madness. A sudden firm grab sounds as Hilda tries to stop her mistress. A sudden sharp pull sounds as the story resumes. Priscilla frantically asks when the wicked devil attached itself to her stomach. A sudden firm tighten sounds as the blonde mistress grabs the maid's arm.
Priscilla recalls how she protected her precious child before her eyes descend into madness.
A sudden heavy sound sounds as the Countess knocks aside her furniture.
A sudden quiet shh sounds as Priscilla covers the maid's mouth with her hand. The blonde mistress insists that thing is not her son and can hear them. A sudden soft slip sounds as Priscilla whispers that she has a secret. Priscilla leaned in and whispers her dark intent to kill the devil. After her chilling confession, the blonde Countess on the floor looks relieved. Hubert and Letitia rush into the ruined bedroom soon after the outburst.
Hilda watches in shock as the others move to restrain the grieving line.
Priscilla goes limp, her hollow eyes leaving an impression Hilda will never forget. Rain pours down on a dark branch overlooking the estate's tall spires.
Heavy rain douses the massive stone towers of the grand estate. Dark, rainy clouds fill the sky above the somber grounds.
Hubert explains he administered a sedative and tells Letitia that Priscilla needs rest. The doctor turns to Hilda and asks if the mistress said anything.
Hilda lies, claiming she only knows about bringing the goat to the Countess.
A sudden firm grab sounds as Hubert takes the maid's arm.
Hubert stares intensely at the maid, stating he will trust her word.
Hubert threatens the maid until Letitia interrupts him to scold his behavior.
Letitia defends Hilda, arguing that the maid is new and likely just scared.
A sudden soft drop sounds as Hubert tells her to leave the rest.
Raindrops fall onto the brown-haired maid's hands as she stands alone.
Hilda maintains her lie while Hubert agrees to look into the mistress's condition.
A sudden watery schwa sounds as birds fly through the rainy sky. Bright sunlight returns to the estate gardens as Hilda calls out to the gardener.
The man in the brown cap greets Hilda and asks how she is. A sudden sharp finch sounds as the gardener notices her sickly, pale face.
Hilda looks exhausted as she asks the man where Emily is currently working.
A sudden low creak sounds as nightmares keep the maid from sleeping owl. The brown-haired maid asks for the redhead's location one more time.
Hilda stares blankly as she struggles to process the horror of the previous night.
A sudden polite bow sounds as Hilda thanks the gardener for his help. A sudden low creak sounds as the gardener tells her not to overwork.
A sudden clear ding sounds as Hilda's fatigue level increases drastically from excessive requests.
A sudden heavy step sounds as Hilda finds her allies still working hard.
Hilda wonders if the hardworking Emily is doing okay after her long shift.
The maid decides to check on Emily and bring her coffee as a gift. A sudden quick pull sounds as a hand continues to weed the brass.
A sudden sharp ding sounds as Emily's interest level drops significantly due to exhaustion.
Hilda lets out a frantic shout as she finds the redhead struggling.
Hilda regrets her choice, realizing interest levels can fall as easily as they rise.
A sudden fast rush sounds as Hilda offers to help the tired redhead.
A sudden metallic stack sounds as a system window confirms the request cancellation.
A sudden firm stand sounds as the maid realizes the task is finally over. A sudden steady step sounds as Emily walks away to take a rest.
A sudden low nauseous sound as Hilda watches her friend leave in a daze.
A sudden weary sigh sounds as the brown-haired maid stands alone in the garden.
Reflecting on her only friend, the maid fears Emily won't talk to her.
A sudden rhythmic knock-knock sounds as Hilda delivers Adrian's medicine.
Nightmares of recent horrors haunt the maid, leaving her head spinning with exhaustion. Hilda feels immense guilt for overworking Emily just to earn a few pennies. Holding a medicine tray, the brown-haired maid laments her current age of suffering.
A sudden heavy sigh sounds as Hilda plans to apologize to her friend.
Standing outside the door, the maid grows worried by the young master's silence.
Hilda worries that Adrian's health is declining due to the long interval between murders.
A sudden loud open sounds as Hilda bursts into the room in a panic.
Terrified, the brown-haired maid threatens to summon the doctor if anything has happened.
Searching the room, Hilda calls out to the young master with growing concern. From within the room, the young master tells her to leave the train.
A sudden low creak sounds as Hilda apologizes for her impulsive behavior.
The maid quickly declines an offer to help with a bath before exiting. Standing alone, Hilda stares at the grand blue curtained bed in the center.
She reflects on how much better the room looks since she organized it.
The atmosphere in the chamber feels noticeably lighter and more pleasant to her. Hilda's eyes are drawn to the soft white pillows resting on the bed. A sudden high bliss sounds as the exhausted maid dives onto the fluffy pillows.
She decides to rest for just a moment, unable to resist the luxury.
A sudden soft clop sounds as the maid begins to drift into sleep. Startled, Hilda looks up to see Adrian standing over her in a robe. With wet blonde hair, the young master asks if she was waiting for him. Hilda stammers as she struggles to process the awkward situation she is in.
The maid tries to explain her presence while avoiding eye contact with him.
She admits to being so tired that she accidentally fell asleep in his room.
A sudden warm blush sounds as the maid's face turns a bright red.
Shocked by his reaction, Hilda lets out a startled exclamation of pure surprise. Adrian looms over the kneeling maid, demanding a real answer to his question. The blonde man offers to give her a lesson if she continues to test him.
A faint smile plays on Adrian's face as he stares down at his maid.
A sudden firm knock sounds as Adrian steps closer to the terrified young woman.
Hilda realizes she can speak freely now that there are no witnesses present.
The brown-haired maid claims she has finally figured out his secret habits and collections.
A sudden soft lift sounds as Hilda clutches a white pillow to her chest.
She mentions her role as his personal maid, giving her special insight into him.
Her gaze falls upon a single, clear water drop on the dark wood.
Bowing low, the maid compares his mysterious nature to a rare and heavenly meal.
She considers making a dramatic protest on his bed to get her point across. Clenching her fists, Hilda acknowledges that he likely doesn't believe her wild claims.
She insists on telling him her truth just once, despite the absurdity of it.
A sudden low rumble sounds as the maid remains bowed before her master.
Adrian looks down at the girl with a mixture of confusion and mild concern.
Narration notes the maid is too embarrassed by his attire to look at him.
A sudden sharp ding sounds as a system window unlocks a new unique ability.
The notification confirms she can now monitor the status of Satan's pawn in real time.
A sudden quiet waver sounds as Hilda realizes she can see his status changes.
Adrian asks if she truly meant her words, appearing slightly flustered himself.
The maid flinches back as the blonde man presses her for a more honest answer.
Hilda boldly claims she likes his pillows because they smell like his hair.
A system notification warns to avoid Adrian while Hilda apologetically admits she cannot give up on his pillow.
Adrian massages his temples as Hilda insistently requests to have 2 pillows.
Surrounded by a radiant floral aura, Hilda charmingly demands her master's pillow.
A quick yup sounding follows as a chibi Hilda dashes away.
Adrian adjusts his shirt while Hilda mentions medicine and tea preparations.
Near delicate white lilies, Adrian decides he has had enough preparation.
A weary woo sounding escapes Adrian as he feels the day's fatigue.
Adrian turns around with a soft mumble sounding, questioning his surroundings.
A steady hand reaches for the teapot once again.
The lid closes over falling tea leaves as a thought lingers. Adrian offers Hilda a specially prepared tea that emits ominous red vapor. A dark question hangs over the cup regarding whether Hilda will drink. Hilda sweats. She notes the lack of a murderous intent warning despite the suspicious situation. Adrian invites her to try the tea amidst a backdrop of roses. The blonde-haired boy presses the offer as Hilda stares in visible horror. Seeing her own reflection in the red liquid, Hilda is asked if she dislikes it.
Adrian insists she drink because he made it specifically for her, while Hilda's skill reveals its malice.
Sunlight hits the window as Adrian questions why Hilda is so hesitant.
Hilda finds it strange that he offers poison without a murderous intent. She wonders if he is testing her ability to distinguish good and evil. Clenching her skirt, Hilda claims she is too happy to drink the tea.
Adrian remains firm while Hilda recalls his suspicious behavior with murderous items. Hilda contemplates revealing her secret to survive this terrifying game.
She resolves to keep her skills hidden to avoid being caught by him.
An oppressive darkness settles over Hilda as she sits at the table.
Hilda decides she cannot die yet and formally refuses the tea. She plans to stall while realizing Adrian is blind to her system.
Adrian ends the negotiation, asserting his dominance over the brown-haired woman.
Adrian commands her to drink as the scene shifts toward a sunny garden.
A soft ripple sounding disturbs the tea surface during the silent confrontation.
A knock sounding interrupts the tension as Adrian dismisses the uninvited visitor. A woman in a dark dress enters the room and offers a respectful bow.
The maid reveals that the madam has ordered Hilda to be brought to her.
Adrian looks up, mentioning that he already had plans to take her out. A low hum sounding escapes Adrian as he considers the new orders.
Adrian admits she must go since his mother called for her personally.
Adrian vows to serve the tea again later as Hilda fumes internally. Hilda makes a hasty promise to return as she flees the room. Adrian watches the brown-haired woman leave with a quiet, focused expression. Adrian calls out a farewell into the now quiet library. The young master waves goodbye and wishes her a safe trip. The maid scolds Hilda for not saying goodbye properly to her employer. Hilda celebrates her narrow escape while feeling relieved to be alive. A sudden tack sounding marks the door closing behind the departing pair. A quick clink sounding rings out as the tea remains untouched on the table. Adrian tells himself there is no need for her to be nervous.
He plans to find out her secret and continue testing her luck.
Adrian pours the tea away, declaring her plans will soon come to an end.
A rhythmic clatter sounding signals a carriage's arrival at the Grand Manor. Hilda furiously punches the exit button, demanding to be sent back from the terrible game. Her anger turns to sudden confusion as she notices the exit button highlight. Chibi Hilda waits anxiously in a state of suspense while a loading screen processes.
A sudden realization strikes Chibi Hilda, leaving her wide-eyed in total shock.
Hilda begs the system for mercy, fearing her accidental choices might reset her progress.
She continues her desperate prayer, treating the digital game system as a divine entity.
A close-up reveals her intense focus on the system's unexpected new message.
Hilda's expression turns to deep exasperation at the system's frustrating and blunt response.
She sits alone in a void, reflecting on the cruelty of her current fate.
Hilda finds small relief in learning she reclaimed her stolen in-game currency. She refocuses on her maid duties, adjusting her uniform for the tasks ahead.
A sudden shout interrupts her thoughts, questioning why she hasn't left for her duties.
Hilda stands amidst white flowers, questioning her permanent role as a lowly maid. Chibi Hilda laments her terrible luck and the daily burden of her chores.
The head maid strikes Hilda while scolding her for being late once again.
Letitia recounts Hilda's failed attempts to swap her dangerous delivery duty with others. Forced to comply, Hilda carries a tray while crying from the immense pressure.
A series of slow, rhythmic creaks follow as she nervously ascends the stairs.
Hilda trembles in the dark hallway, dreading the inevitable encounter with her master.
She bites her lip, feeling the danger of her high-stakes daily medicine delivery.
Hilda plans to avoid Adrian by learning his daily schedule from another maid.
She keeps her head down, moving with extreme caution through the quiet castle.
The silent hallway echoes with more soft creaks as she approaches the master's room.
A sudden, sharp creak sounds as a dark figure appears in front of her.
Hilda asks the empty space if the young master is absent as usual.
She prepares to leave the tray and flee before she can be spotted.
A chilling sound echoes as a glowing blue eye peers from the darkness. A steady, menacing talk of footsteps approaches from the deep shadows of the castle. Hilda freezes in terror, her breath hitching as the footsteps draw near. Her eyes widen in absolute horror as she realizes she's being watched. Adrian emerges from the gloom, his piercing blue eyes fixed coldly on her. A dark, chilling voice asks if she was the one who called out.
The blonde master looms over Hilda as she falls to the floor in fear.
His intense, glowing blue gaze remains locked onto her small and trembling form.
Hilda stares back, paralyzed by the sheer predatory presence of the blonde boy.
The terrifying question repeats, echoing through the heavy silence of the dark hall. Hilda can only manage a soft gasp as she sits paralyzed on the floor. She stammers out a frantic apology for her clumsy and terrified reaction.
She realizes with sinking dread that her killer master is truly standing there.
Looking around, she confirms with horror that the hallway is completely deserted. A crushing sense of isolation takes hold as she faces him entirely alone.
Hilda realizes her life is in immediate danger while standing before her master.
She understands with terror that Adrian could end her life in a single instant.
Her heart races as she desperately searches for any way to escape. She considers turning to run, but fear keeps her rooted to the spot. The terrifying consequences of a failed escape attempt keep her from moving at all.
Thump, her heart hammers as she recalls Adrian's past kills and swift efficiency.
Adrian suddenly kneels, his hand reaching toward the terrified and trembling maid. He speaks her name with a gentle smile that feels deeply unsettling and wrong.
His firm grip on her shoulder signals that she cannot escape him now.
A sudden, steady stop sounds as the carriage arrives at the Grand Temple.
A sudden soft touch sounds as the blonde servant helps Priscilla disembark.
Priscilla steps onto the temple grounds, looking somber and elegant in her white gown.
Hilda watches the scene, wondering if the servant is surprised by her mistress's presence.
The brown-haired maid reflects on how Adrian's beauty must have come from the Countess.
Hilda looks up at the bright sky as they prepare to enter the holy grounds.
Two angle statues stand guard atop the massive white stone temple entrance. Walking through the courtyard, Hilda remembers that this is the place where she grew up.
The grand estate of the temple rises majestically with its white domes and spires.
Staring up at the towering architecture, the maid finds the scale of it overwhelming.
Looking into her bag, Hilda updates her progress on the stuffed goat project.
She explains her hope that the gift will help restore the Countess's mental health.
Hilda asks if she should accompany her mistress, but is ignored by the quiet woman.
Priscilla suddenly turns and commands the maid to follow her into the building.
A sudden, loud creak sounds as the massive wooden doors swing open for them.
A sudden bright shimmer sounds as the magnificent interior of the temple is revealed.
Two men in clerical robes stand near the altar, engaged in a quiet conversation.
A sudden, divine light sounds as it reflects off a beautiful white angel statue. Hilda closes her eyes in prayer, hoping her own wishes are granted first.
A sudden, deep voice sounds as someone welcomes them for arriving at the temple.
Walking down the hall, they are asked if they encountered any trouble during travel.
A sudden, polite bow sounds as a cleric leads them toward the waiting archbishop.
Priscilla stops, stating she has one crucial thing to confirm before they proceed further.
The blonde mistress asks about the specific things she told them to prepare beforehand.
A sudden dark hum sounds as Priscilla asks if the item is finally ready.
They walk through the pews toward the two men waiting in the center aisle.
The cleric mentions the archbishop's concern regarding the recent string of serial murders.
A sudden sharp glint sounds as the statues seem to watch their every move.
Priscilla suggests moving the conversation inside to discuss the matter in Graget.
The Countess turns back and instructs Hilda to wait alone in the main hall.
Hilda grows worried and urges her mistress to call out if anything goes wrong.
Priscilla reassures the maid that everything will be fine while excluding her from the room.
A sudden heavy step sounds as the mistress vanishes into the dark inner chamber.
Sunlight bathes the exterior of the temple while the secret meeting begins inside. Hilda sits on the floor, suspecting that they are discussing a secret related to Adrian. Horrific memories of the Countess's descent into madness flash through the maid's mind. Hilda reflects on how she barely survived the terrifying events of the previous day. Staring blankly, the brown-haired maid realizes she needs a way to counter Adrian's influence.
A sudden playful click sounds as Hilda attempts to draw energy from the temple. A sudden bright ding sounds as a system notification confirms she obtained a rare herb.
A tip window explains the medicinal preparation required to help heal the Countess's heart.
A sudden, weary sigh sounds as the maid decides to keep the hero-grade item. Hilda looks around the holy chamber, finding it the most relaxing place she's known.
She reflects on how the temple feels like a true home amidst all the chaos.
A sudden, chilling contrast sounds as a dark, bloody premonition looms behind her peaceful thoughts.
The maid considers the comfort of being back where she was born and raised. A sudden, happy shout sounds as a familiar voice calls out Hilda's name. An elderly woman scolds Hilda for not writing letters after moving to the grand estate.
Overwhelmed by the lecture, Hilda comically collapses onto the floor in a daze.
A sudden soft creak sounds as the woman mentions Hubert's new charity medical clinic.
Thought bubbles reflect on Hilda's history as an orphan who grew up in the Gubble.
A flashback shows the Falscrafts founding a hospice care center for the terminally ill. Hilda wonders what horrific secrets are hidden behind the hospice center's closed pores.
A sudden, firm grip sounds as the elderly woman holds Hilda's arm tightly.
The woman asks if Hilda is involved with devil worshippers within the temple.
Joanne warns that the goat doll is a symbol of the devil.
The elderly woman apologizes for scaring Hilda, saying she is simply worried.
Reaching into her sleeve, Joanne offers Hilda a small vial of water.
A system notification identifies the holy water as an item used to harm devils.
Hilda recalls Adrian's terrifying presence, wondering if the water can really stop him.
The woman laments that Hilda was always a clumsy and worrisome child. Seeing Hilda grown up and working for the Count fulfills Joanne's prayers. Joanne insists Hilda take the vial, saying she can easily get more later.
She urges Hilda to maintain her faith despite being away from the temple grounds.
A sudden, loud shout sounds as a cleric demands to know what they are doing. Confused, Hilda watches the woman's expression shift into a look of pure panic. A sudden, fast rush sounds as Joanne flees from the approaching cleric.
The cleric apologizes for the disturbance while Hilda watches the woman vanish.
The brown-haired maid stares in shock at the revelation she is about to hear.
He explains that Joanne is a notorious swindler who steals from the temple's devotees.
The scene shifts to the orphanage where Joanne once stole money intended for children. The narration notes that naive children never suspected their protector of such betrayal.
The cleric reveals the investigation that finally exposed Joanna's long-term cruelty.
He offers Hilda a parting blessing, wishing her peace in his god's name.
Staring at the glowing vial, Hilda realizes the depth of Joanne's deception.
She reflects on how she hasn't truly prayed since entering this game world. Looking up at the grand architecture, she doubts any god truly exists here.
Hilda decides she will never pray to the same god that Joanne believes in. Chilling memories of the Countess singing to a dead goat haunt the maid's thoughts.
The scene transitions as the maid prepares to return to the grand estate.
Priscilla prays by the window, repeating a Latin phrase in a desperate whisper.
Sunlight shines over the magnificent spires of the Count's grand palace.
Moving through the halls, the staff prepares for the upcoming tea service.
Adrian leads the way to his mother's room, followed by his maids. Hilda worries she is losing touch with her friend Emily due to work. A sudden, sharp turn sounds as Adrian looks back with a piercing gaze.
Startled, the maid calls out to the young master as he approaches her.
Adrian praises her for the tea leaves she brought from her temple visit.
A sudden low open sounds as the blonde man enters his mother's chambers.
Priscilla sits on the floor, huddled in blankets as her son stands over her.
A sudden cold chill sounds as Adrian greets his mother with a terrifying smile.
The blonde man looms over the trembling countess, asserting his dominant presence.
A chilling question hangs in the air, asking if his mother has been well.
Sunlight bathes the estate as Adrian mentions his knowledge of her temple visit.
Adrian apologizes for his neglect while Hilda and another maid stand by.
Holding a wooden cross, the young man complains about things bothering him. With a feigned look of sorrow, he offers a hollow apology to his mother. He mentions planting a tree and brewing tea with the leaves Hilda clackered.
Priscilla trembles violently, clutching her cross while stammering a prayer in Latin.
Adrian asks his maid if she is all right while standing near the window. A turn sounding marks the moment Hilda reflects on her low status as a maid.
Hilda thinks the Countess is still in a fragile state and questions her motives.
Hilda wonders if she is trying to play the part of a hero in this situation.
Letitia tells Hilda to apologize to the young master immediately for her behavior.
Hilda observes the inexplicable pain and sorrow visible in the eyes of the blonde-haired woman.
She notes the accumulation of deep sorrow in the Countess's frail skeletal frame. Hilda believes her intervention is the best option for both of them at this moment.
Letitia apologizes for Hilda's lack of training, but Adrian says he understands the maid's intentions.
A smile sounding follows Adrian as he warmly encourages his mother to enjoy the tea. Adrian clenches his fist as he anticipates his mother's pleasure after drinking the tea. A drop sounding marks a crow passing the window as the word yes hangs in the air. A sudden splash sounding punctuates Letitia's shock as the teacup is violently broken.
A ding sounding signals a system notification that the Visionary's eye item is now available.
Letitia warns Hilda to be careful since the young master considers her to be special. A stop sounding marks Letitia's confusion as she is interrupted while giving her subordinate instructions.
A loud crash sounding rings out as the tea set is smashed onto the tiled floor.
Adrian expresses mock disappointment that the special tea has been wasted on the ground.
Letitia is outraged and demands to know what the brown-haired maid thinks she is doing.
Adrian refuses Hilda's offer to clean the mess, saying they can simply brew more tea. A reach sounding follows as Letitia promises to teach Hilda a lesson for her relaxed attitude. The scene focuses on a metal spoon lying in a puddle of dark, spilled liquid.
Letitia continues to clean the mess while grumbling about the reputation of the family.
Looking up from the floor, Letitia asks Hilda for a reason behind her reckless behavior.
Adrian tells Letitia to take his mother away and bring the guards to the room. A reach sounding marks the desperate calls for Albert and the guards as the Countess flees.
Hilda addresses her master as they are left alone in the cold, silent room.
Hilda admits defeat to the blonde-haired boy, telling him that he has finally won. A crunch sounding rings out as Adrian steps onto the broken porcelain with a smirk. Adrian holds Hilda's chin and questions if her warnings about keeping enemies close were lies. Someone points toward the location of the incident, yelling about the room with the open door.
Adrian expresses his frustration that there are too many interruptions to their private conversation.
A reach sounding accompanies Adrian leaning in to whisper that he wanted a longer talk.
Adrian reveals his knowledge of Hilda's ability to see evil intentions and his own secrets.
A push sounding marks Adrian's cold warning for Hilda to pray he doesn't regret his mercy.
A grab sounding follows as Adrian warns that the Count will also face consequences.
A wide-eyed focus on Hilda's eye punctuates her realization of the young master's cruelty. A narrative bubble declares that it will be hard for the two of them to meet again. Adrian turns and walks away through the grand hallway, leaving Hilda behind.
Guards seize the brown-haired woman and roughly drag her away from the scene.
A creak sounding marks Adrian's departure as he wonders who will run his errands now. A grab sounding underscores the final warning about the Count and the young master's intentions.
Adrian walks away as the light fades from the scene of the confrontation.
The guards drag the maid down the hall as she struggles against the crepe.
Adrian pauses at the door, contemplating the loss of his most useful servant.
An sounding escapes Hilda as she's insulted for being an ungrateful child.
Hilda pleads with Albert behind bars, claiming that the entire incident was a setup.
The guard dismisses her plea, stating that there is no proof of her innocence.
A shake sounding marks Hilda's desperate plea to see the Count to name the real culprit.
A final text bubble asks for clarification regarding the identity of the case's real culprit.
Albert looks up as a newcomer approaches the dungeon where Hilda is currently imprisoned.
Adrian emerges from the shadows, his face partially obscured as Hilda realizes he has arrived.
Adrian dismisses the guard, claiming he needs to personally question Hilda regarding the recent case.
Albert hesitates to leave, but Adrian commands him to depart in a cold, authoritative tone. Albert obeys and leaves while Adrian warns him to be careful on his way out. A sudden rhythmic step sounds as Adrian approaches the bars of Hilda's cold prison cell.
Adrian addresses Hilda by name, accusing her of eavesdropping on his conversation with the guard.
A sudden metallic clink sounds as Adrian leans against the bars, mockingly noting her answered prayers.
Adrian reveals his ability to control others through hypnosis, noting Hilda's unique immunity to his power.
A sudden low crunch sounds as Adrian crouches, explaining that he just failed to hypnotize her again.
Adrian asserts that Hilda already knows his true identity and what he is capable of doing.
He questions how she uncovered his dark secrets when no one else ever could before.
A sudden, firm grab sounds as Adrian holds her chin, asking if she is his natural enemy.
Hilda denies being a threat, asking how a simple maid could ever harm the young master.
Hilda reflects on her passive abilities, wondering why he views a terrified girl as a dangerous foe.
A dark void fills the background as Hilda argues that he has captured the wrong person.
Hilda mocks Adrian's logic, suggesting his reasoning failed because he missed his daily medication dose.
Adrian stares intensely through the bars, stating that he cannot allow her to remain alive.
A sudden light puff sounds as Adrian laughs, claiming it was just a joke before demanding a sacrifice.
Hilda is left speechless and utterly confused by the young man's sudden, bizarre shift in attitude. Adrian admits her knowledge is a threat, yet he still has unresolved questions about her true intentions.
He demands a sincere promise that she will never attempt to harm him in the future.
Hilda questions his request while Adrian points out the grim nature of her current surroundings. A sudden, frantic shake sounds as Adrian describes the horrific deaths that occurred in this very room.
A sudden, soft touch sounds as Adrian reaches through the bars, admitting he doesn't trust people.
Touching her face gently, Adrian explains that he chooses to believe in the power of human desires.
He reveals the primary reason he has decided to keep her alive for the time being.
Adrian leans in close, his presence looming over the maid as she stares back in silence.
A sudden sharp flinch sounds as Adrian credits his decision to her incredible instinct to survive.
Adrian expresses high expectations for Hilda, choosing to place his trust in her will to live.
A sudden firm squeeze sounds as Adrian holds her hands, sealing their dark new arrangement.
Adrian delivers a final, chilling warning to the maid, telling her not to disappoint him.
A sudden soft hum sounds as Adrian smiles brightly amidst a background of blooming white flowers.
Sunlight bathes the massive spires of the grand estate as a new day begins.
Red roses bloom along the palace balcony, overlooking the vast and peaceful green forest below.
A sudden heavy sigh sounds as a system window updates Hilda's title to Satan's right hand.
Hilda walks through the garden, lamenting her bizarre promotion while insisting she is a good person.
A system graphic illustrates Hilda's three-step evolution from a useless servant to a demonic puppet.
Hilda reflects on the deal she made to escape the dungeon in exchange for her help. Dark rumors spread among the staff, claiming Hilda is a dangerous poisoner who should be avoided.
Hilda notes the perk of her new reputation is that people now leave her alone entirely.
A sudden soft whirl sounds as Hilda realizes her only duty is delivering meals to Adrian.
A sudden sharp click sounds as the maid decides to check on a forgotten system status. Hilda initially feels touched, thinking her friend is worried about her while she was imprisoned. A sudden angry glare sounds as Hilda realizes the status window isn't about her friend Emily.
The notification reveals that a man named Isaac is actually the one being monitored instead.
Hilda grows furious as she sees Isaac performing a ridiculous love dance instead of working.
Stomping through the garden, Hilda wonders if everyone thinks her imprisonment was just a game. A sudden painful thud sounds as Hilda accidentally runs headfirst into a tall, broad-shouldered man.
Hilda rubs her sore nose, questioning what kind of sturdy obstacle she just collided with.
Hilda turns around in confusion after a voice calls her name.
A sudden sharp turn sounds as a man appears in the garden.
The brown-haired man recognizes Hilda and greets her with a smirk.
He mockingly asks what a famous person is doing in such a lowly place. The man jokes about her poisoning the family, calling her a feisty brogue.
Hilda recalls that this man is Zed, the stablekeeper's idiotic troublemaker.
Narrative text explains that he is only kept for his skill with horses.
A sudden firm grab sounds as Zed catches Hilda's arm roughly.
A sudden heavy push sounds as Zed corners her against the fence.
He laughs at her resistance, finding the chase for her attention enjoyable.
Hilda demands he step aside, claiming she is on an errand for Adrian.
Zed mockingly offers to help her fetch more poison for the master.
A sudden heavy step sounds as Zed looms over the panicked maid.
He expresses interest in taming her and seeing her become obedient.
A sudden fast swing sounds as Hilda tries to punch the root man.
A sudden firm squeeze sounds as Zed catches her arm and steps on her foot. Zed suggests they spend mind-blowing time together while Hilda struggles in pain.
A cold, authoritative voice demands that Zed remove his foot immediately.
Adrian's presence looms as he notes that his personal maid is in pain.
Adrian questions why Zed is making advances when she already hasn't. Sunlight bathes Adrian's calm yet terrifying expression as he stares at Zed.
Sunlight shines over the magnificent spires of the Count's grand palace.
A sudden, fast rush sounds as birds fly over the palace walkway.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the characters stand on stone packs.
Adrian looks down at Zed, asking for an answer in a chilling tone. Adrian questions how much longer Zed intends to hold in her cauldron.
A sudden soft hum sounds as Adrian asks Hilda if she is okay.
Hilda blushes and thanks him, surprised by his sudden protective behavior. Hilda explains she was looking for him because Leticia said he was here.
Adrian asks if she came to see the flowers, telling her to calm down.
A sudden heavy pant sounds as Hilda catches her breath after the ordeal. Adrian mentions that he was actually seeing his mother off earlier today.
He reveals that the Countess is going to a villa to relax.
Hilda wonders about the Countess's health following the temple visit.
Shadows fall over the garden where Priscilla used to spend her niz.
The blonde woman stares out at the garden with a somber expression.
Adrian admits he only came out to see if he could say goodbye.
He laments the many accidents happening lately, making it hard to see her.
Adrian notes that he wanted to be with his mother for his birthday.
The two walk through the sunlit garden as Adrian shares his thoughts.
Adrian sadly notes that everyone who knows his true nature has abandoned him.
Narration describes the mother's worsening condition and his desire to help.
A sudden soft rustle sounds as Hilda's brown hair catches the light.
Looking at his sad eyes, Hilda reflects that Adrian really feels like a human.
Adrian calls her name gently, turning his attention back to the maid.
A sudden light top sounds as Adrian boops Hilda's nose playfully. Adrian smiles warmly, telling Hilda that she is really fun to watch.
He jokes that everything she thinks is written clearly all over her face.
Adrian leans in closer, asking Hilda what she truly thinks of him.
He thanks Hilda with a sincere smile as they stand among the roses.
Confused Hilda stares blankly, wondering what the young man means. Hilda claims loyalty while Adrian notes her release from prison. He mockingly comments on her apparent eagerness to begin murdering citizens. Adrian labels her a sufficient sacrifice despite her inward thoughts regarding his lack of humanity beneath a handsome face.
Hilda quickly changes the subject, asking Adrian to look at a list.
Adrian agrees to walk and talk to avoid prying Hus.
Radiant pink roses bloom brilliantly under the clear morning sky.
Adrian rejects excluding Alban, noting the difficulty of finding such talent.
He refuses to exclude several others, specifically defending the musician Matthew's talent.
Adrian insists on keeping Leonard the gardener for his exceptional skill.
He defends artists while a sudden, high-pitched beep sounds from Hilda.
Hilda grows frantic, pointing at the list and asking who remains.
Adrian refuses to exclude the stablekeeper, noting his unique communication skills.
A sudden, sharp top sounds as Adrian suggests changing their plans.
Adrian declares he will first teach her how to properly kill.
A sudden, sharp top sounds as Adrian repeats his plan changes.
Adrian reiterates his intent to provide the maid with proper kill training. Adrian asks if this new, dark arrangement sounds like fun.
He questions if the maid was already prepared for this path.
Adrian asks why Hilda is making such a troubled expression now.
A sudden, firm squeeze sounds as Adrian questions her true willingness.
He notes that Hilda always freezes up when asked direct questions.
Adrian acknowledges that murder is not a simple task for humans. He claims he has no desire to force her into anything.
Adrian laments being abandoned by those who know his true nature.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Hilda calls out for her.
Hilda internally screams, wondering if she has truly lost her mind.
She stammers that killing is simply difficult to do right now.
Hilda asks for clarification on the rules of his power recovery.
She asks if different methods or intensities affect the power gained.
Hilda observes that Adrian looks surprisingly childish in this particular moment.
Adrian raises a finger, asking to ask his own question first. A graphic explains that the first step involves incapacitating the opponent.
Step 2 involves bringing the defeated opponent directly to the master.
Adrian explains that pain and duration determine the strength he regains.
Hilda reflects on how overly detailed and specific the curse is.
Adrian asks if she is thinking about Lilith while defending life.
Hilda feels a pang of sympathy for his lonely, difficult life.
Adrian smiles warmly while standing amidst a background of white rethys. Adrian confirms that Hilda is correct regarding his recent behavior.
A sudden soft rustle sounds as the maid confirms the truth.
Sunlight filters through the vibrant green leaves of a nearby tree.
Hilda admits she still knows very little about the young man.
She notes his mercy toward Zed despite his frequent threats toward her.
Adrian observes her conflicting behavior while she questions his demonic nature. Adrian stares off into the distance with a neutral, silent expression.
A small squiggle appears as Adrian reflects on their strange interaction.
A sudden, light scoff sounds as Adrian admits he has no rebuttal. A sudden, sharp cough sounds as Hilda prepares another question.
She asks if he trusts information from strangers about his powers.
Hilda asks exactly how long it has been since his Haas murder.
Hilda stands paralyzed by horror as a dark presence limbs.
Hilda walks alone through the palace grounds in deep thought.
Seeing the master's hand stained with darkness, Hilda panics.
A sudden sharp click sounds as Hilda rushes into the kitchen.
A kitchen maid reminds Hilda she is currently banned from entering.
Hilda ignores the maid's protests and pushes past her.
A sudden sharp creak sounds as Hilda forces open a cabinet. Hilda frantically grabs medicine bottles as the other maid shouts.
Hilda tells the maid to complain to Letitia about the mycin.
A dark and heavy resolution settles over the determined maid. A sudden sharp tap sounds as the maid tries stopping Hilda.
Hilda ignores the desperate shouts and sprints away with the medicine.
The kitchen maid calls out for guards to stop the thief. A sudden quick patter sounds as Hilda flees the kitchen neck. Hilda panics as strange new symptoms appear on her status panel.
Hilda desperately outruns a guard while searching for the young master.
A sudden quick patter sounds as Hilda frantically calls for Adrian.
Tears fill Hilda's eyes as she fears she won't be early.
As dusk settles, a voice suddenly calls out Hilda's name.
Night falls over the magnificent spires of the Count's grand palace.
Letitia tells Hilda she did well while standing over Adrian.
Letitia admits they narrowly avoided disaster thanks to Hilda's intervention.
Letitia explains that her misplaced loyalty led to a dangerous oversight. Overcome with shame, Letitia offers Hilda a sincere, humble apology.
The scene shifts as the tension in the room sells.
A sudden, sharp click sounds as Hilda begins her lonely vigil.
Hilda lets out a weary sigh while watching over her master.
Hilda reflects on the weight of her choices among blooming lilacs. The quiet night surrounds Hilda as she watches Adrian sleep peacefully.
Adrian finally wakes and asks why the maid is there.
Hilda bombards him with concerned questions and demands he take medicine.
A sudden light tap sounds as Hilda encourages his quick recovery.
Adrian softly agrees with Hilda while reaching out toward her. Adrian admits he doesn't understand her, but remembers her help. Adrian chillingly describes past endurance to ease the maid's worries. The master offers Hilda a rare and sincere word of thanks. A sudden fast rush sounds as Hilda abruptly turns away.
Hilda hides her face from Adrian among the blooming white roses.
Adrian expresses confusion while Hilda quietly denies being bothered by him. Hilda wonders if the master's past was filled with deep loneliness. A system notification reveals Adrian's deep gratitude while Hilda ponders. A system notification announces a level increase and new unlocked skills. Hilda begins to speak to the master as the atmosphere shifts. Hilda's eyes sparkle with amazement at a mind-blowing gold reward. Adrian plays the piano peacefully as sunlight fills the elegant room.
Melodic music flows through the room as Adrian focuses on playing.
Adrian notes the rare tranquility of the day during his practice. A sudden, heavy thud sounds, interrupting the master's peaceful morning. Hilda cheerily enters to deliver medicine with a bright, wide smile. Adrian looks frustrated as Hilda jokingly offers to stay all day. Adrian mentions having much work today and asks to enter as a sudden, sharp tap sounds.
Adrian tells the maid to come in while he sits at his piano in the sunlight.
Bright morning light streams through the large windows of the master's elegant study.
Adrian offers Hilda an out if she feels forced, but she insists she is helping willingly.
Hilda admits she values her steady wage and finds administering his medicine to be no trouble.
Hilda privately reflects on how satisfying it is to earn gold and experience from the master. Hilda wonders if the master is truly grateful given his recent life-threatening condition. Hilda excitedly imagines spending her massive rewards on expensive new dresses and stylish boots. Hilda mentions the unpleasant incident from last night while thanking the master for his timely warning. Hilda tells the blonde man to drink his medication slowly as she resumes her caretaking duties.
Hilda expresses her happiness that the master no longer struggles with his meal schedule.
Adrian praises the maid's work before dismissing her to rest while she considers future sacrifices. Hilda asks the master exactly how grateful he feels for her constant, secret support.
Hilda suggests the master is deeply thankful for more than just his medicine.
Hilda highlights her efficiency compared to previous maids, asking for the master's honest thoughts. Hilda declares her own exceptional value and jokingly suggests she deserves double pay for her efforts. Adrian sincerely thanks the maid while a system notification calculates his minor level of gratitude. Hilda looks utterly deflated when her reward is revealed to be a single coin and experience.
Hilda calls out to the master while he responds with a short, confused question.
Hilda frantically talks to herself about being too loud and needing to keep quiet. Hilda leans in close to the master, asking for his true feelings toward her. The brown-haired maid presses for a response, asking the young master how he really feels. Panicking, Hilda apologizes for being too forceful and promises not to repeat her bold behavior. Hilda finds his recovery strange after such fatigue, asking if his murder interval is the cause. Narration describes the master's intense daily pain that would drive others to seek death. Narration explains that the master's only relief from his ravaging torment is taking lives. Hilda asks the master where he is going as a sudden heavy rumble sounds from the door. The blonde master stands silently with his back turned in the room. Adrian admits he was unaware of her thoughts while the maid reacts with stunned surprise. Adrian expresses that he is genuinely touched by the maid's actions on his behalf. Adrian notes that the maid seems capable of accomplishing any task he might ask of her. Adrian turns toward Hilda, asking if she truly understands the meaning behind his words. A pair of legs walk steadily across the room toward the maid. The maid wonders if she committed a mistake without realizing it while the master stops.
Hilda looks on in absolute shock as the master approaches her space.
Adrian leans in remarkably close to Hilda, causing her to freeze in place.
Adrian grasps her hand gently while a sudden firm squeeze sounds during his quiet question. Adrian leans in to whisper a chilling question regarding her past experience with killing.
Adrian holds the maid tightly against him while an oppressive dark aura fills the lower scene.
A sudden soft shift sounds as Adrian pulls the flustered maid even closer to him. Hilda stammers nervously, pointing out that the master is standing far too close to her.
Adrian asks for clarification as a sudden firm squeeze sounds from his hand on her waist.
Hilda accuses the master of being intentional while she frantically tries to push him away.
Adrian jokingly offers her more proximity while a sudden soft slide sounds from his hand.
Hilda claims she is honored but quickly asks what he means by teaching her. Adrian reminds her of her promise to find sacrifices as a sudden firm squeeze sounds.
Adrian explains that murder is becoming necessary again as a sudden sharp click sounds. Adrian notes that real practice is far superior to mere training for his dark purposes.
Hilda stares at her master with eyes wide in growing disbelief.
Adrian smiles while preparing a knife, predicting a fun outing as a sudden light scrape sounds.
A tranquil morning light bathes the grand clock tower overlooking the city's rooftops.
The blonde master tips his top hat with a sudden light swoosh sounding.
Adrian thanks the carriage driver while the man offers him a tour of the town.
Adrian declines the offer with a sudden sharp click sounding from Hilda's nearby steps. The master introduces Hilda as his personal maid and mentions training her the previous day. Hilda looks completely traumatized as a system log recounts her grueling 4-hour knife lesson.
Adrian tells the maid to meet him later while she gives a nervous affirmation. A horse-drawn carriage travels past a stone fountain in the center of the square.
Hilda walks through a garden of white roses, feeling refreshed after her shopping trip. The maid considers skipping her meeting or stalling for as long as possible today.
Hilda stops at the entrance of a dark, unfamiliar alleyway with a curious expression.
A large red warning triangle appears as Hilda enters the mysterious new area.
A sudden bright ding sounds as a system notification explains that infamy unlocks new maps.
Hilda reviews past system alerts detailing her rising stats after interacting with the devil.
The maid reflects on her rising infamy from gambling and gaining the devil's trust. A system card shows Isaac's animosity toward the maid for not following his instructions.
Hilda is paralyzed with shock as a warning declares her infamy has nearly peaked.
Hilda ponders the system's logic, where murder is the only true measure of evil.
Hilda complains about being compared to Adrian while imagining herself as a pure citizen.
The maid continues her walk while noting a strange cold sensation in her head.
Hilda reflects on her near-death experiences as a sudden, sharp tap sounds from behind.
Hilda accidentally bumps into a man who aggressively questions where she is even looking.
Hilda tries to explain herself, but the thug suddenly drops into a deep bow.
Grover begs the maid to spare his life and pledges his eternal loyalty.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Hilda wonders why he mentioned a road of evil.
The maid attempts to de-escalate the situation while the man remains bowed on the ground.
The man continues his desperate plea for mercy despite the maid's confused attempts to apologize.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as the maid stands bewildered by the man's intense reaction.
A chibi depiction of a worried angel and a small devil frames the story's title.
Grover introduces himself as a system prompt, asks to add him to our interest list.
A sudden bright ding sounds as a chibi version of Grover is formally introduced. Hilda is horrified that a random thug would be added to her personal interest list.
Grover vows to follow the maid forever as he continues his dramatic display of atonement.
A second man approaches and asks what Grover is doing on the cold stone floor.
The newcomer also falls to the ground in a deep bow, begging for her forgiveness.
A system notification identifies the thief Caden and asks to add him to the list.
Hilda feels judged as a passing couple glares at the scene she has caused.
The two men grab at Hilda's skirt while crying about her devil-like presence.
Caden and Grover beg to be taught the ways of evil by their new master. The men cry about following her forever while Hilda desperately tries to correct them.
Hilda is horrified as a system timer begins counting down to an automatic selection. The maid panics as time runs out before she can reject the men's requests. A system notification confirms that both Grover and Caden have been added to the list.
The two men celebrate their new positions as stars and sparkles fill the air.
A sudden, sharp startle sounds as the men sprint away to begin their random mission.
Hilda stands alone and stunned in the street as a single leaf drifts by.
A mother tells her child to look away, labeling the maid a bad person.
Hilda is left in a state of absolute shock as the townspeople avoid her.
Hilda's level and title update as she morbidly contemplates everyone dying together.
The bells in the tower ring over the busy afternoon traffic in the town square.
The shopkeeper confirms the order for 20 high-quality pencils while the brown-haired maid stands at the counter.
A system window confirms the purchase as the maid worries about the master's whereabouts and considers buying items to increase his likability.
A system window calls forward the item list while showing a display of bottles in the background.
A sudden, bright sparkle sounds as the system describes an elegant gold music box available for purchase.
Multiple bright sparkles sound as the shop's list displays a typesetter for poets and a sophisticated pocket watch for gentlemen.
The brown-haired maid holds a globe with wide, curious eyes.
A system window reveals that the blonde master likes the globe, leaving the maid surprised by his interests.
The maid wonders if she should buy the item despite worrying it might be too large for her bag.
A sudden bright ding sounds as a system notification offers her the privilege of purchasing extra storage. A sudden heavy slam sounds as the maid frantically clicks the button to purchase a new bag for 700 gold.
The maid complains about the bag's high cost before the blonde master suddenly appears behind her to ask about Kaden.
Startled, the maid asks the master when he arrived while he explains that he followed the sound of her voice.
The maid tries to explain her complicated relationship with the other man while the master notes that the person she mentioned is male. The master explains that he can hear her voice clearly and noted her emotional tone when she spoke of the other man.
The maid reflects on her expectation of receiving a cold response from the master as he stares at her.
The maid considers his usual behavior as she looks up at the blonde master. Leaning close, the master asks the maid about her true relationship with the other man, noting she never uses such an emotional voice for him.
A decorative frame featuring the main characters introduces Chapter 37 of the horror game survival story.
The master suggests the maid expected his usual icy tone as he continues to stare at her intensely.
A young woman calls out to the master, addressing him as Lord Sobake while he turns to acknowledge her.
The woman presents a gift to the master while explaining her family's humble position and thanking him for his arrival.
The master rejects the notion that the gift is humble as he prepares to accept it.
Smiling warmly, the master accepts the precious gift and immediately hands the box over to his stunned maid.
The maid wonders why she was given the box while a crowd of people in the background clamors to present more gifts to the master.
A massive pile of gifts, including scripts, music scores, and food, falls onto the overwhelmed maid as the crowd continues to cheer.
Feeling dizzy, the maid wonders if the master intends to pass all of these sudden gifts to her alone.
A large red warning triangle appears as a notification declares that the maid's bag has reached its maximum capacity. The maid screams in refusal when offered another expensive bag while worrying about how she will recover the lost gold.
A system notification celebrates the purchase of a new bag while the master's gifts lie scattered on the floor amid confetti. Adrian looks down with concern, asking the brown-haired maid if she has been injured by the falling items.
Adrian apologizes for not helping sooner while the maid covers her face and begins to cry from the stress.
The maid sobbed about her struggles and the troublesome things that happen whenever she is near the young master.
Resigned to her fate, the maid invites the master to scold her as she sits on the floor among the scattered boxes.
The maid cries about the futility of her efforts while other servants look on and the master tries to calm her down.
A sudden bright rustle sounds from the trees as the master suggests they step outside to talk privately.
The scene shifts to the exterior of a brick building as a nearby conversation concludes for the day.
The blonde master kneels before the seated maid on a bench beneath the shade of the trees.
Adrian apologizes for being harsh and promises to control his anger as he reaches out to comfort the maid. The blonde man warns that his next words might sound very strange as he looks into her eyes.
Adrian explains he has no intention of scolding her and admits he finds it interesting when she reacts emotionally because of him.
The maid looks at the master with wide eyes as a deep blush spreads across her cheeks.
Hilda shouts in protest while looking away from the master in embarrassment. Hilda accuses the master of being late on purpose and enjoying the situation while he offers her a handkerchief to calm down.
Crying, the maid complains that the master always resolves their issues with a simple, effortless apology.
The master watches her quietly, simply calling out the maid's name as she continues to vent. Adrian expresses his gratitude for her hard work and admits he feels uneasy about her getting along with other people.
A system window notes that Adrian hopes his prospective right arm will stop crying and being confused by the situation.
Adrian lets out a surprised sound as he watches the maid's reaction closely.
The master notes that the maid has finally calmed down and that her tears have stopped.
Hilda looks completely shocked as the blonde master declares that her face looks even more beautiful in this moment.
Adrian asks Hilda if she was surprised by his sudden appearance.
Adrian softly apologizes while the maid stares in wide-eyed terror.
Hilda politely accepts his apology despite her visible and intense trembling.
Hilda offers to get new medicine as Adrian apologizes for surprising her.
Adrian privately thinks to himself that Hilda has been acting quite strange.
A moment of reflection follows as he considers her recent distance.
Adrian wonders if he did something wrong to cause her avoidance.
He considers if she is hiding something important from him.
Adrian asks his question as Hilda notes his gentle, calming presence.
She realizes a tiny difference exists in every word he speaks.
Glitchy thoughts of Adrian asking why Hilda has been avoiding him.
Eerie clicking sounds accompany Hilda's realization that his behavior is creepy.
Hilda asks if he wants to know why she left the medicine. A bright floral background highlights Hilda's sudden look of intense surprise.
Chibi Hilda explains that aging has ruined her morning sleeping habits. She elaborates on how early rising should theoretically improve her life.
Hilda prays for forgiveness, blaming her sleeping habits for the distance. Adrian laughs but admits he feels upset about the lost connection. He laments losing one of the few people who actually listened. A close-up of Adrian's eye reveals his reaction to her explanation.
Adrian apologizes for complaining and suggests they start fresh conversations now.
Hilda makes excuses to leave, secretly dreading being in the room.
Surrounded by flowers, the master asks if everything is fine now. A heavy purple aura surrounds Hilda as Adrian calls her him.
Adrian asks if she intends to keep him waiting like this. Hilda stands alone in the room, her expression filled with worry. The blonde master stands silently by the window in his chambers.
Hilda finds the room lonely and notes Adrian's lack of conversation.
Violent imagery of blood splatter reflects the maid's internal, terrifying thoughts.
Bloody handprints cover the screen as a dark premonition takes hold.
Hilda's gaze remains fixed and fearful amidst the growing, dark tension. A simple potted plant sits nearby as someone asks about Scuffles.
Adrian mentions that a guardian visited him earlier in the morning.
A chilling close-up focuses on the piercing blue eye of Adrian. Hilda's eye dilates in a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. Determined to escape, Hilda urges Adrian to rest and change early. Hilda cites Letitia's concern, warning him not to overexert himself today. Adrian agrees to her request with a serene and supportive smile.
Hilda hesitates before offering to help him change his formal clothes.
Adrian declines her help, telling her she needn't go that far.
The master stops the maid, beginning to make a final request.
Tense lines emphasize Hilda's terror as Adrian tells her to wait. Adrian touches her shoulder, asking her to close the room's curtains.
He reaches for the fabric, complaining that it is too bright.
Hilda bids him farewell, but Adrian reminds her of tomorrow's delivery.
Trembling with the tray, Hilda confirms she will return the next day.
Master Adrian sits alone on his bed after the maid departs.
His hand pauses on the door as he speaks to her. Dark energy swirls as he ponders if her actions were genuine. Hilda stands frozen in shock against a backdrop of dark flowers.
A view of the brick building under a bright sky accompanies a thought about changing perspective.
Seated on a park bench, the blonde master asks if the brown-haired maid feels better, and she confirms that she does.
Adrian asks if she has finally calmed down, and the maid simply agrees that she has.
The master questions her answer, noting that it looked as though she were on the verge of tears. A gentle, soft rustle sounds as the master uses a handkerchief to tenderly wipe the tears from the maid's face.
Looking at the maid, the master expresses his relief that her crying has finally stopped.
Hilda explains that the gifts are valuable and suggests she could take several of them to ease his burden.
A soft, light brush sounds as the master touches the maid's face, making her reconsider her earlier thoughts.
Adrian asks the seated maid if she is worried that her decision might be regrettable.
The blonde master gazes at her with a calm, focused, and almost knowing expression.
Adrian notes that nothing is regrettable and asks how she will carry the items, causing her to blush deeply.
The master claims he won't force her, but his words about taking offerings leave Hilda recalling his previous contradictions.
Hilda wonders where demons learn to speak, while Adrian credits loyal servants, leaving the maid confused by his logic.
Narrative boxes describe the peaceful village and sunny weather that enchanted the observer with its serene atmosphere.
A single text box reflects on a moment where one might have let their guard down.
Standing under a street lamp at night, the master declares his long wait is over and everything is finished.
Blood splatters across the master's face as he looks on with a dark, hollow, and haunting expression.
A sudden sharp swish sounds as the master prepares to remove his bloodstained jacket.
Adrian asks if Hilda is all right, revealing he handled things and regrets they didn't use the knife together.
The master holds the maid's hands over a blood-dripping blade, promising they will do this together next time.
Hilda realizes the knife was used for murder while the master admits feeling a strange sense of relief.
A heavy tap sounds as Adrian places a hand on Hilda's shoulder, assuring her she has what it takes.
The master suggests they return to the mansion now, just as the maid had previously wished.
Narration describes Adrian as elegant but eerily demonic, possessing a warmth known only to him within the mansion. A black-haired man in a long coat smokes a cigarette while standing in the pouring rain.
The man exhales a cloud of smoke as the rain continues to fall heavily around him.
A sudden, loud shout calls out for the inspector as the black-haired man stands near a cemetery gate. A subordinate runs up to the inspector, asking what he is doing and offering assistance in the rain. The inspector reviews papers, hearing that nothing noteworthy was found and suggesting the targets may have already moved. Standing by the iron fence, the subordinate calls out to the silent inspector again.
A sudden wet splash sounds as the inspector steps forward, deciding there is no need for further investigation now.
The black-haired inspector gives a thin, mysterious smile and simply says they should leave.
A bright, sunny morning begins as the red-haired maid Emily waves and cheerfully greets Hilda. A system window notes Emily's refreshed state after sleep while she comments on the lovely weather.
Hilda is glad she slept well, but Emily mentions her recent fatigue and wonders if things have improved. Hilda reflects on her deep sleep skill while questioning if this peaceful setting really hides nothing unusual.
Emily informs a startled Hilda that Albin the butler was looking for her to go to the guest room.
Chibi versions of the maids discuss their duties while Emily warns that the master's anger is truly frightening.
Hilda looks toward the trees while noting the dogged and persistent mood of the current situation. The brown-haired maid feels relieved that someone's complexion has improved significantly.
A chibi depiction shows the red-haired maid standing against a checkered pink and white background.
Hilda considers the drawbacks of the deep sleep skill but realizes its potential to help Adrian in pain. Startled, Hilda's eye widens as the master suddenly asks what she is thinking about.
Adrian finds her cute while Hilda internally prioritizes her own well-being over his as she walks through the hall.
A sudden rhythmic click sounds as the maid walks up the stairs, greeted by a voice from below.
Hilda explains her scheduled walk with Adrian and asks the gray-haired butler if something urgent has occurred. Albin acknowledges her presence and explains that the Count himself has specifically requested to see her.
Hilda stands frozen in shock as she repeats the Count's title in her mind. The maid asks why he would want her, but Albin isn't sure and starts to ask a question.
Albin looks toward the maid and confirms her name is Hilda as a system prompt appears.
Inspector Harrison arrives at the mansion with his deputy, noting his lack of patience after waiting so long. Albin reminds the visitors they are in a Count's home, prompting the deputy to apologize repeatedly while Harrison admits to causing trouble.
Harrison explains that dealing with criminals is his duty, noting his methods lack the refinement of the nobility as Hilda watches him warily.
Hilda wonders if the inspector is addressing her as he explains the police presence and mentions that her involvement would be beneficial.
Albin reacts with shock to the request, but the Count interrupts to order the butler to lead their guest to the reception room.
The Count offers his cooperation to Harrison, acknowledging that a crisis in the village affects the entire Paltzgraf estate.
The group gathers in the reception room to continue their tense negotiation.
A white-gloved hand grips the handle of a cane tightly. The Count questions the inspector's intent, noting his son was merely a witness to the village incident. Jeffrey tries to ease the tension by explaining they only came to confirm reports about the master's health.
Harrison describes the suspicious circumstances surrounding the witness's presence in the village and the lack of clear answers from the staff.
Harrison identifies the maid who accompanied the master as the missing link, causing Hilda and Albin to flinch in surprise.
The inspector declares his intent to find the truth now to avoid a confrontation with the true mastermind later.
Hilda remains firm and flatly denies any knowledge of the incident.
Harrison stares intensely at the maid, insisting there is no reason for her to deal with his superiors directly.
Hilda and Albin stand together as the inspector continues to probe for information.
Hilda maintains her master had nothing to do with the events in the village.
Harrison stands up suddenly, demanding proof of her honesty and questioning why he should trust her words.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as feet shift across the carpet.
Harrison looms over Hilda, warning that a total denial makes her look guilty of hiding something from the law. Harrison smiles thinly, boasting of his interrogation skills and advising the maid to choose her words wisely.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as feet shift across the carpet.
Harrison smiles thinly, boasting of his interrogation skills and advising the maid to choose her words wisely. The inspector stands close to the silent maid, waiting for a crack in her resolve. Harrison summarizes the alibi regarding the tea leaves, but Hilda challenges him to verify it and asks why the master is a murder suspect. Harrison notes he never called it a murder case, but Hilda argues his arrival naturally leads to such speculation. The black-haired man scoffs at her logic and prepares to make a mocking remark.
A sudden sharp slap sounds as Hilda knocks a cigarette from the inspector's hand, startling the butler.
Harrison stares at his empty hand, calling the turn of events deeply regrettable. Hilda scolds the inspector for smoking, citing the master's severe asthma and demanding he show respect if he wants a future meeting.
A series of loud laughs echo through the room as Harrison finds the situation amusing. Harrison chuckles at the maid's boldness, finding her to be an extraordinary member of the household.
The inspector concludes that the matter is settled for now, much to Albin's relief.
The Count agrees that the current discussion has reached its end.
Harrison offers to return at a more convenient time, noting his busy schedule for the day.
The inspector promises to meet again soon as Hilda walks down the quiet hallway alone.
Hilda collapses to the floor, gasping for breath and feeling as though she barely survived the encounter.
Hilda fumes over the inspector's behavior, relieved that she managed to slip by his notice.
The brown-haired maid worries about Harrison's final warning and wonders what her next move should be.
A hand clenches into a determined fist. Hilda contemplates her survival and wonders why Adrian's face appeared in her mind at that moment.
Hilda regrets missing a golden opportunity to resolve the suspicion surrounding the master.
Adrian appears suddenly, looking down at the maid with a somber and focused expression. The blonde master asks where she is hurt, noting he heard about the police arrival.
Adrian watches her silently as she looks up at him in shock.
Adrian asks how she wants him to handle the situation for her.
Adrian notes her determination to stay by him despite her fear of his nature and her apparent repulsion.
Adrian asks if she will abandon him like his mother did while dark, scaled patterns loom behind him. Hilda looks up at the master with a look of pure confusion and disbelief. Adrian looks away slightly, claiming his ominous question had no real meaning behind it.
Narrative boxes reflect on a thoughtless whim and the sudden feeling of receiving a divine revelation despite a lack of religious faith.
A single text box hints at an ultimate conclusion as strands of brown hair drift across a floral background.
Hilda lunges forward and catches the blonde man's arm as a quick, firm grab sounds.
Adrian looks back in surprise as the maid admits her actions were driven by her concern for him.
Hilda is visibly distressed, asking if the young master knows what the Viscount said during his visit.
Hilda shouts a warning for him to be careful outside, while a narrative box notes the absurdity of the dialogue.
A close-up shows Hilda's small hand gripping Adrian's white sleeve as a system prompt hints at future events.
Hilda stammers, unable to find the right words as her face remains partially obscured.
Hilda looks completely devastated, realization dawning as she declares that everything has been ruined. Adrian looks confused as the maid repeats her claim that the situation is ruined.
Hilda looks up at the blonde man in the center of the large sunlit room, addressing him again.
A system window notifies Hilda of an increase in Adrian's affection, though she finds his taste peculiar before he brings up the village murder incident.
Adrian touches his hand to his face, noting that the maid is finally speaking honestly about her thoughts.
Hilda urgently shushes the master, warning him that they might be overheard since they are so close to the door.
Hilda grips his hand as a quick, sharp snap sounds while Adrian asks if her behavior is due to the inspector's suspicion.
Adrian is skeptical, questioning how she could have heard sounds from the first floor while they are on the fourth.
Adrian leans in close to the maid, suggesting that her education has failed and noting her clear suspicion of him.
Adrian stands over Hilda, declaring that pretending to kill lacks satisfaction and excitement.
Hilda is shocked by his words, remembering the person she caught the previous day and questioning his meaning.
Adrian advises her to stay quiet to avoid being caught by anyone as a low, dull thud sounds.
Adrian continues his cryptic talk, mentioning actors at the clinic and the corruption surrounding the murder case.
Narrative boxes discuss the heavy burden of difficult situations and the loss that comes from unnecessary effort over an image of a medicine bottle.
Hilda stands close to the master in the hallway, looking down as she softly acknowledges his words.
A quick, firm grab sounds as Hilda claims she misunderstood the situation, while Adrian mocks her audacity for doubting him.
Hilda asks the blonde man to let go of her shoulders, but he insists on asking her one more question.
Adrian looks down at the maid, demanding to know why she covered for him when the inspector was present.
Memories of taking scissors and running to find the inspector flash through Hilda's mind as she realizes she missed a golden opportunity.
Adrian stares intensely with his blue eyes, demanding that the maid answer his question.
Hilda stands alone in the dark, hearing the master's repeated question about why she protected him.
Hilda fidgets with her apron as a soft rustle sounds, explaining she only wanted to avoid trouble during their shared travel. Adrian notes her lie, pointing out her confidence until he spoke, while Hilda internally questions his guilt in the murder.
A hand reaches out toward the maid's face as a soft, rhythmic brush sounds. Adrian gently cups Hilda's face, watching her as she stands before him with a concerned expression.
Adrian explains he has no intention of scolding her, but is simply curious about the inconsistencies in her actions.
Adrian leans in close to her ear, softly whispering her name as a soft, hollow thud sounds.
Hilda is flustered, claiming her actions were a simple return of the warmth he previously showed her.
Panels show memories of their past interactions as Adrian muses on misunderstandings and the simple exchange of warmth. Adrian acknowledges the maid's answer with a small smile as he places a hand on her shoulder. Adrian notes that Hilda has been afraid of him since the beginning, but her current gaze is different.
Adrian smiles softly, promising to stay by the maid's side regardless of her knowledge of his true nature.
Hilda is shocked, her green eyes wide as she processes his words about warmth.
Adrian blushes deeply and admits his feeling for her while surrounded by white lilies.
Adrian repeats his promise to stay by her side even though she knows his true self.
Adrian blushes and confesses his love for the maid again amidst the blooming flowers.
A series of soft, rhythmic taps sounds at the door as the gray-haired Dr. Hubert arrives for the master.
Hilda looks toward the door as Hubert's voice asks if she is inside.
Hilda greets the doctor, but he notes her flushed face and asks if she is suffering from a fever. Hilda looks away as a soft, weary sigh sounds, attributing her state to the chilly weather and her surprise.
Hilda worries if she has made another mistake while asking the doctor about his well-being.
Hubert smiles thinly, noting that only Hilda asks about his health as a system window labels him as evil but friendly.
Hilda looks completely bewildered as she questions the shocking information.
Thought boxes question why Hubert, a doctor, possesses an evil attribute, as Adrian asks the maid to handle a task for him.
Thought boxes contemplate the criteria for receiving an evil attribute while Adrian and Hubert converse in the master's bedroom.
Hilda walks away with her luggage as Adrian prepares to uncover the truth, prompted by her address to him.
Adrian stops the doctor to ask his opinion on sending Hilda away, though Hubert refuses to discuss it while she is present.
Adrian reassures the doctor that the maid is trustworthy, urging him to speak freely until the gray-haired man finally agrees.
Memories of a blood-stained dress and a large cross accompany Hubert's report that a high-ranking woman has been acting suspiciously lately.
Hubert warns that the woman is being indoctrinated by priests, but Adrian dismisses his concerns, stating she has simply gone downstairs for care.
Hubert stares intently with his dark eyes as a soft, weary sigh sounds, ultimately accepting the young master's explanation.
Hubert bows respectfully, agreeing to prepare the medicine as part of his official duties for the household.
Adrian remains silent as Hubert calls out for Hilda to assist him with the preparations. Hubert mentions a popular shop in the village and offers a sample to the brown-haired maid, who is surprised by the gesture.
Hilda takes a bite of the treat and happily declares that it is absolutely delicious. Hilda closes her eyes and smiles brightly, offering a heartfelt thank you to the gray-haired doctor. A heavy, rhythmic thumping sounds as the doctor experiences a strange internal reaction.
Hubert informs the maid that the medicine is ready and asks her to accompany him on a brief errand.
Hubert explains he has some business to attend to at the market and promises it will be a quick trip. Hilda is startled by the sudden request but quickly agrees, reminding herself to take care of the cookies.
A quick, firm grab sounds as a hand seizes a dark back.
Hilda hurries after the doctor, eagerly asking to join him on the trip to the market.
Adrian suddenly blocks her path, firmly instructing the maid to stay behind and get some rest. The door lets out a long, high-pitched creak as Adrian looks back one last time, promising to return soon.
Time passes until nightfall, and a soft, heavy flop sounds as Hilda collapses onto her bed with a tired sigh.
Hilda looks at the stolen notebook in her hands, frustrated that the language is too dark and difficult for her to read.
Hilda sits up suddenly, questioning why a physician who saves lives would be associated with a murder-influenced evil attribute.
A series of quick paper-like rustles sounds as she flips through the pages, wondering if the system's judgment could be flawed. Hilda pauses as she gazes at a dramatic image of a moth, sensing that she has just discovered something important.
Hilda is frozen in shock as a dark realization begins to dawn on her. Narrative boxes analyze the notebook's codes, concluding that Hubert has been selling terminally ill patients to Adrian for murder in exchange for gold.
Hilda reflects on the gap between the recorded murders and the complication posed by the arrival of the inspector, Harrison.
Hilda carefully hides the notebook, recognizing it as a vital piece of evidence that she must protect at all costs.
A close-up shows a pristine white envelope sealed with a dark wax stamp.
Hilda looks at the letter, questioning if it truly confirms the sender was the Marquis of Market.
Narrative boxes explain that the letter was actually a scout's proposal for a maid position, which Emily helped to translate.
Hilda contemplates the unusual nature of a noble scout's proposal until a quick, sharp chime sounds as a system notification appears.
A sudden, sharp alarm sounds as a warning window flickers into existence.
The system displays status updates for several individuals, showing that Caden and Grover are facing a life-threatening menace from a villain.
A red warning screen flashes, urgently announcing that the safety of the person of interest is in immediate danger.
New notifications inform Hilda that both Caden and Grover have been incapacitated and her relationship with them has been severed.
Hilda is horrified, unable to comprehend how the two strong men could be defeated so suddenly, while a soft, rhythmic tap sounds at her door.
Hubert calls out from the hallway, asking if Hilda is in her room and inviting her to see a gift from the young master.
Under the shade of green leaves, Isle and Adrian sit together at a table in the sunlit room.
The maroon-haired maid politely addresses the blonde master while he is occupied with a book.
Isle asks for specific details about the young master's trip to the market 3 days prior.
A soft rhythmic brush sounds as Adrian blinks, focusing his blue eyes on the maid.
A quick, sharp snap sounds as Adrian closes his book and calmly states he visited the butcher shop.
A chibi-style ale stands dazed with a piece of meat as Adrian asks if she is referring to the item she received.
Isle nervously laughs and confirms she liked the sweet and meat that the young master mentioned.
Adrian smiles softly and expresses relief that the maid enjoyed the gift he provided.
Adrian holds a bundle of 5 pencils while Aiel stands by him, explaining her dedication to serving him.
Adrian gazes at Hilda with a gentle expression and tells her that he is always thankful. Adrian notes that the durability of a pencil was weak as it completely broke down, leaving Hilda curious if it truly broke.
Adrian recalls Caden becoming incapacitated when a wooden object broke 3 days ago after receiving a small shock. Adrian appreciates Hilda's gift while she promises more durability next time, though a narrative box notes a throat was cleanly pierced.
Hilda believes Adrian's ignorance of her suspicions gives her a significant advantage while he remains meticulously occupied with his pencil.
Narrative boxes suggest there might be bloodstains on his clothing or a bloodied pencil for her to find as evidence.
Hilda ponders the difficulty of investigating that evidence unless Adrian were to doze off for a brief moment.
A brilliant light flashes as a sunburst announcement declares that the Sleep Well skill has been activated.
A system notification explains that the Sleep Well skill can put non-combatants to sleep once per day.
Narrative boxes explain that sleep duration varies by difficulty, noting that servants previously slept for 2 to 3 hours.
System records show that Letitia slept for 1 hour while Emily had the longest sleep time at over 3 hours.
A chibi-style Adrian is labeled a challenging character, leading Hilda to estimate that he will only sleep for about 3 minutes. Hilda plans to use her Clear's Eye skill to check the room as soon as Adrian finally falls asleep.
Hilda believes Adrian's ignorance of her skills will lead him to have lax management over any incriminating evidence.
Hilda asks for permission to leave the room for a task for Letitia, and Adrian agrees on the condition that she returns.
A quick, firm rustle sounds as the brown-haired maid turns away from her master to exit the room. A quick mechanical chime sounds as a system window appears, asking Hilda if she wants to activate her sleeping skill.
Adrian begins to slump in his chair as he starts to doze off under the influence of the skill.
A soft rhythmic tap sounds as the blonde master drifts into an unnatural forced slumber.
A decorative title card marks a formal transition in the story as the next sequence begins. Adrian remains seated and asleep while Hilda observes him from the door before making her move.
Hilda is overwhelmed with shock and relief as she realizes her plan to put him to sleep has actually succeeded.
A quick, firm rustle sounds as Hilda rushes toward her sleeping master to begin her search.
Hilda hurries to find evidence within her 3-minute window, believing the skill has given her the perfect opportunity.
A quick, firm grab sounds as a hand suddenly seizes the maid's wrist, stopping her mid-stride.
Hilda is paralyzed with shock as her master catches her and prevents her from moving any further.
The maid's green eyes go wide with horror as she realizes Adrian has already awakened from his slumber. Adrian notes that he was only asleep for a moment as he maintains a firm grip on her arm. Adrian looks up at his maid with an intense gaze, catching her completely off guard.
A heavy rhythmic thumping sounds as Adrian smilingly asks the flustered maid exactly what she just did.
Hilda is horrified, unable to believe that her 3-minute window has somehow already expired.
Hilda questions the difficulty level as she realizes the master was only affected for a mere 5 to 6 seconds.
Adrian simply says no while still holding on to the maid as she tries to comprehend her failure. Adrian notes that he fell asleep unnaturally and asks if there is a connection to her staring into empty space.
Hilda decides to play ignorant while internally questioning how he became aware of her demonic system ability.
A sharp cack sounds as Hilda reacts with intense surprise to his sudden and accurate insight.
Hilda panics, realizing that Adrian may have been waiting for the exact moment when she would leave behind clues.
Narrative boxes emphasize that the master was waiting for her to reveal her hidden actions or evidence. Adrian notes she is cutting off his circulation and threatens to hold her hand all day unless she tells the truth.
Adrian admits it has been a while since he experienced a prank like the ones the old spirits used to play.
A golden question mark appears as the brown-haired maid looks completely bewildered by his cryptic comparison.
Adrian confirms the feeling he got while Hilda internally calls him a devil for seeing through her skill.
Adrian suggests that Hilda use her tricks in moderation from now on, as he does not enjoy pranks like that.
Hilda repeating his words about evil spirits in confusion while Adrian confirms his suspicions with a knowing look.
The maid's eye twitches as she processes the fact that her master is aware of her invisible interface. Adrian points his finger into the air to demonstrate how he noticed her pressing buttons on a system window. Adrian notes that Hilda always seemed to be pressing something into the air at that specific angle.
Adrian promises that he will gladly be deceived at any time as long as she does not overdo it. Adrian addresses the maid by name as he continues to hold her hand during their intense exchange.
Adrian looks at Hilda with a soft expression and claims that he has never met a person like her before.
Hilda reflects on her master's confusing behavior and the pranks he plays.
Adrian looks away while acknowledging that Hilda once saved his life.
Adrian recalls how his maid brought him medicine and care every day.
Hilda dismisses her actions as simply performing her professional duties.
Adrian mentions their past shared walks while Hilda considers them long over.
Adrian's fingers gently brush against the ribbon in his maid care.
Adrian admits he enjoyed her affection while Hilda responds with uncertainty.
An elderly man kneels in a dark cell under a spa bay.
The manor stands silent beneath a deep blue moonlit night sky. Adrian finishes his preparations by putting on a pair of black glass. A candle burns on a desk beside a closed book.
Adrian looks back, wondering if Hilda intends to join him today.
Hilda focuses on her task while adjusting her master's couch.
Adrian questions if the intended sacrifice is someone that Hilda personally knows. Adrian specifically asks if Grandma Joanne is the chosen victim.
Adrian confirms the name while Hilda tries to minimize her concern. Hilda stares downward in silent contemplation of the grim ritual ahead.
Adrian watches his maid's reaction with a calm and steady gaze.
A quick, firm top sounds as footsteps walk past dried, bare branches.
Adrian questions her courage to meet the person she has been avoiding.
Hilda struggles to suppress her empathy for the person who is dying. Adrian admits his survival requires killing, but claims he spares the innocent.
Adrian looks up at Hilda, asking for her understanding of his predicament.
Adrian acknowledges the difficulty Hilda faces and decides to act alone. Adrian asks Hilda not to distance herself as she confirms her loyalty. Hilda decides to accompany her master to witness how the murder occurs.
Adrian retracts his joke about spirits while Hilda blinks in surprise. Adrian notes that nothing ever seems to come easily for his maid. Adrian admits he is attracted to the complex nature of her character. The scene shifts to the dark and empty corridors of the hospital.
Hilda realizes the hospice is actually a place for Adrian's sacrifices.
Hubert greets the pair and announces that all preparations are complete.
Hubert asks if they will enter immediately, and Adrian confirms. Adrian turns back and invites his maid to enter the room together.
Hilda quickly declines the invitation, choosing to wait in the hallway.
Hilda nervously explains that she does not want to cause any trouble.
Adrian accepts her excuse with a smile while Hilda feels immense relief.
Hubert leads the master toward the room as the ritual begins.
Hilda sits alone on the floor, questioning her decision to stay.
Adrian's focused gaze remains steady as he approaches the final task.
Hilda is overcome by a sudden wave of shock and realization. A close-up shows Hilda's green eyes widening in pure, unadulterated horror.
Adrian promises Hilda that he will return once the ritual is finished.
Adrian walks away into the darkness, stating that it will soon end. An oppressive silence falls over the hallway as the scene transitions.
The atmosphere becomes increasingly tense as Hilda waits alone in the dark.
Hilda wonders how much time has passed since Hubert left his post. Piercing screams suddenly erupt as Hilda regrets coming to the hospice.
Desperate pleas for mercy shatter the silence, begging the attacker to stop.
The victim cries out for Hilda to save them from the room.
Hilda desperately tries to convince herself everything is just a game.
She refuses to accept the grim reality, calling it a lie. Bloody footprints lead the way as she questions the carnage found.
A looming Adrian stands over his terrified and huddled maidservant.
Adrian reaches out to check if Hilda is physically unharmed.
Hilda flinches violently away from her master's touch in deep fear.
A heavy, sudden thud sounds as the tension between them peaks.
Hilda nervously asks if her master is the one feeling afraid.
She claims to only be surprised by the sudden violent events. Adrian looks downcast while claiming he did not commit the murder. Adrian explains she died of fright and begs for her trust. Adrian questions if she has ever truly trusted him for once.
He laments that she continues to distance herself despite his efforts.
Adrian leans against her, questioning if she dislikes being near him.
He expresses a deep desire for her to stop fearing him. Adrian admits he is confused and overwhelmed by his own feelings. He describes a pain so sharp he'd prefer cutting himself.
Adrian reveals he values her life despite his power over her.
He wonders why her fear has become such a massive issue. An emotional beat passes as the two characters share and look.
Moonlight fills the silent manor as the master ponders his actions.
A decorative backdrop asks if the true nature of things is understood.
The master and maid share a final, tense moment before dawn.
Morning arrives as a carriage travels swiftly down a wooded path.
Hilda reflects on the nightmare of Joanne's death during her journey.
She logically analyzes the scream she heard to find the truth.
Deep doubt remains despite her internal struggle to trust her master.
She recalls Adrian's plea for her to not be afraid anymore.
The memory of his confession about his painful feelings continues haunting.
The central question of what to do next weighs on her.
Hilda is jolted back to reality as her carriage ride ends. She arrives at the incredibly grand and sprawling Marquis Marcoute Estate.
Hilda stands alone before the massive, ornate gates of the estate. She enters the estate to complete an errand for some tam.
Hilda notes the suspicious similarity between this area and the last. She dismisses the staff as mere game characters she can ignore.
Hilda enjoys some food provided by the estate's very friendly staff.
The excessive hospitality makes her consider working at this new location.
She reminds herself to focus strictly on her original errand mission. Finding the jam delicious, she considers sharing some with her master.
Hilda bumps into a silver-haired man while trying to leave.
Aaron Market identifies himself and notices the unfamiliar maid standing there.
He mistakenly assumes she is a new recruit from the Cout. Hilda nervously plays along with the silver-haired man's mistaken assumption. Aaron claims he was looking for her and had high expectations.
Aaron evaluates her appearance and invites her to serve his family.
Insulted by his touch, Hilda gives his hand a painful pinch.
Aaron cries out in shock while Hilda offers a sarcastic apology.
She makes up a ridiculous excuse about a bog on him.
Furiously, Aaron attempts to seize the maid for her blatant disrespect.
Adrian suddenly appears and grabs the silver-haired man's arm just as he tries to attack Hilda. A loud, agonizing scream erupts as the silver-haired man is struck by the master's swift counterattack. Adrian asks if Hilda is upset that he used her present to defend her, explaining he followed her to the Marquis estate.
Hilda is left speechless, looking at the brown-haired man and asking what he has done.
Adrian explains he is there because she left him and he felt the weight of her absence.
A panicked call for the young master rings out over the grand estate. A soft groan sounds as the morning light begins to fill the quiet room.
Hilda blinks in surprise as her master finally starts to wake up.
Hilda asks if her master is finally awake as he rests comfortably on her lap.
Hilda scolds him for skipping his morning medicine and criticizes his impulsive decision to stab a man's hand despite the recent visit from the inspector.
Hilda questions why he thought she was truly gone, explaining she was only away on a brief errand and would never leave such a weak young master behind.
A soft, simple confirmation settles over the scene as flowers bloom around them.
Adrian looks up from Hilda's lap with a gentle smile, relieved to know she was never actually gone. Adrian thanks his maid and admits he was terrified she had fled because she was afraid of him.
Adrian expresses his relief, explaining he feared she had gone beyond his reach or decided she never wanted to see him again.
Adrian tells the brown-haired woman how happy he is that he can stay with her. Adrian asks if he made a mistake because Hilda has become so quiet.
She's haunted by the same internal questions about her identity and her importance to Adrian.
Adrian offers to buy her as many waffles as she wants before they return.
She continues to wonder about the true nature of their shifting relationship. Adrian reaches out and asks if she is feeling sick.
Adrian notes that her face has turned red while she questions her feelings for him.
Adrian repeats his worry, asking if he did something wrong since she won't speak.
The heavy question of who she really is to her master remains unanswered.
The scene shifts to the bright morning at the estate as Hilda continues her duties.
Hilda's hand reaches for a specific medicine bottle among the collection on the shelf.
A sharp clack sounds as Hilda carefully places the medical supplies.
A soft poke sounds as Hilda touches her invisible interface in confusion. Hilda enters the bedroom and calls out to her young master who is sitting on the edge of the bed. Hilda explains she rejected the Marquis's offer long ago and warns him not to stab people in front of witnesses, reminding him a future count must be more careful. She asks if he has anything else to say while he watches her with a steady gaze.
Adrian admits he feels relieved because everything finally seems to have returned to normal.
Adrian points out that she had been on edge for a long while and couldn't even breathe properly in his presence.
Adrian notes that only the real Hilda would scold her master so easily, while she insists she was simply worried about him.
A system window announces Adrian's interest level has increased by 20 points as he thanks her for her concern.
A close-up reveals the details of the maid's uniform amidst blooming branches. Hilda announces she has finished organizing and prepares to take her leave.
The sound of him standing suddenly echoes as Adrian begs her to wait.
The master stops her with a firm grab as he asks her to stay for just a second.
Hilda is taken aback by his sudden intensity and calls out to him in surprise.
Adrian apologizes for his impatience, but admits he is terrified she will disappear to a place he cannot find.
Hilda laughs at his preposterous idea and claims to have a perfect solution.
Hilda suggests moving her room right next to his, shocking the blushing master.
The young master is left speechless and utterly bewildered by her bold idea.
Hilda argues that a lowly maid cannot live next to the master, but he notes that Letitia and Alvin already live close by.
Adrian asks for her opinion on the idea while Hilda internally calls him a devil.
Hilda realizes that the master isn't listening to her objections at all as he remains fixated on his plan.
A gentle push sounds as Hilda forces her master back toward the bed, telling him sickly people need their rest.
Adrian calls her headstrong about weird things while she maintains she is perfectly normal. Adrian resolves to visit more frequently to stop her from having thoughts that might get her kicked out of the estate.
The maid sits at the bedside of her resting master.
Adrian claims anxiety and suggests she sleep with him, but she refuses.
Dark, ominous clouds gather over the spires of the grand estate.
Heavy huffing sounds through the trees as the scene shifts abruptly.
Hilda reflects that her changing relationship with Adrian hasn't changed a dark reality.
The doctor notes Adrian's condition was stable until recently and orders Hilda away.
The doctor explains Adrian's severe seizures resulted from missing his crucial medical treatment.
The doctor warns Hilda against her kindness while Adrian's voice calls for her. Chaos erupts as Adrian collapses while coughing up a dark, viscous liquid.
Adrian reaches out to comfort Hilda while she frantically orders him down.
Hilda desperately calls for a duvet and medicine as Adrian struggles to breathe. Hilda turns and sprints down the stairs as bright splashes mark her calf.
Memories of Adrian's bittersweet promise of prison loyalty haunt the frantic maid.
She recalls him questioning her fear as his health continues its violent decline.
The memory of his relief at her return flashes through her mind. A silent moment of gratitude fills the space between them in memory.
His heartfelt declaration of happiness about staying together lingers in the air.
Hilda resolves to save the young master no matter the cost.
A system notification declares the start of a murderous new main quest. The brown-haired woman rushes through the manor as liquid splashes the laws.
A fleeting image of her master's gentle face underscores her dark resolve. The master's promise of happiness contrasts sharply with the manor's current gloom.
Hilda reaffirms her desperate mission to save her master from his fate.
The grim reality of the murder quest is punctuated by visceral splashes.
The manor stands silent under the glow of a pale night moon.
A rustic room is revealed where a man sleeps in deep shadows.
A sharp creak sounds as the wooden floorboards yield to weight.
Hilda looms at the door, her presence a silent threat in the dark.
She approaches the bed with careful, silent steps through the moonlight.
A quick step sounds as she nears the unaware sleeping stablekeeper.
A dark, heavy atmosphere settles over the impending scene of violence.
One final low creak sounds as the intruder reaches her target.
Hilda raises a heavy shovel high above the defenseless man's head. A purple flash accompanies the heavy swing of the iron tool.
A violent smash echoes as dark liquid sprays across the wooden walls.
A sequence of brutal impacts rings out through the quiet stable quarters.
Hilda stands breathless over the twitching body as dark blood drips.
The victim's blood-stained clothes provide a grim testament to the assault. Heavy huffs fill the room as the maid stares at her work.
A chilling focus settles on the blood-spattered woman in the darkness.
Hilda declares the assassination a success as she watches the fallen man.
She rationalizes Zed's death as a necessary sacrifice for his past cruelty.
Hilda describes the cold clarity and internal heat driving her to kill.
A clench sounds as she realizes she's the only one capable.
Hilda notices the man is still breathing and plans a final blow.
The victim suddenly twitches and lunges at his attacker with desperate strength. Zed pins the intruder against the wall in a violent struggle. A loud bang sounds as Zed slams the maid against the wed.
Zed demands to know who sent her while Hilda stubbornly refuses him.
Zed lists potential enemies and threatens a painful death for the intruder.
The stablekeeper insults the brown-haired woman while she cries out in sudden pain.
A quick kick sounding knocks the wind out of the man as he is struck.
Hilda collapses onto the floor while noting that the man is still weakened by her previous attack.
The stablekeeper recovers and furiously warns the maid not to underestimate him or his threats. A leap sounding marks Hilda's desperate attempt to follow through with her deadly intention.
A suave sounding follows as the brown-haired woman moves with swift and lethal resolve.
Hilda's hand desperately grips the handle of the iron shovel during the violent struggle. A slash sounding echoes through the dark moonlit night outside the manor stables.
The man screams in agony as a brutal blow to his ankle completely disables him.
Hilda condemns the man for ruining innocent lives while he begs her to stay away.
With a cold and focused gaze, Hilda confirms her dark intent to finish the job.
The maid delivers a final, chilling condemnation, telling the man to reflect on his sins in hell. A metallic clang sounding rings out through the silent estate during the middle of the night.
A flop sounding marks the moment both the attacker and her victim hit the floor together.
Hilda reflects on the master's constant suffering as she struggles to remain conscious on the floor. Adrian looks down at his injured maid with a gaze full of deep sorrow and concern. Standing in the shadows, the blonde-haired boy wonders aloud how much pain Hilda truly suffered. Hilda is shocked to find her master there, questioning how he could travel in his condition. Adrian cradles his maid and demands to know who is responsible for her violent injuries. Hilda sees through his claims of being fine and realizes his illness is her own fault. Hilda tells Adrian she has disabled the man and asks if he will deliver the final blow. Adrian shields her eyes and tells her she is too scared to see what comes next. The young master comforts the exhausted maid, telling her she worked hard and needs to sleep.
Hilda reflects on the surprising warmth of Adrian's body and the vitality of his pulse.
As Adrian holds her tightly, a fresh realization about their connection begins to settle over Hilda.
A small brown bird sits peacefully on a sunny wooden window frame.
A hand reaches out to offer a warm white mug to the recovering maid.
The brown-haired woman thanks the young master as she accepts the warm fink.
The scene shifts to the bedroom where Adrian sits attentively by the resting maid's side.
A quick sip sounding punctuates the peaceful moment as Hilda enjoys the hot beverage.
Adrian gives her permission to leave the estate, but the brown-haired woman firmly refuses his offer. Adrian reminds her he is the employer and admits his fear for her safety overrides everything else. Adrian reaches out to clasp her hand, noticing how much she is still visibly shaking.
Adrian takes full responsibility for her current state while Hilda tries to interrupt his guilty words.
A sparkle sounding accompanies Adrian's vow to care for her, making Hilda feel his behavior is unfair.
Hilda internally questions if her master is abusing his beauty to get exactly what he wants.
A soft tremble sounding underlines Hilda's nervous insistence that she is really fine and doesn't need help.
Adrian confesses that her safety and well-being are everything to him, leaving her utterly stunned. A sudden swive sounding marks Hilda's embarrassed attempt to change the subject to something else.
Hilda recounts the brutal details of the struggle and the pain she faced the day before.
Adrian is visibly distressed by her mention of blood, while Hilda tries to reassure him.
Hilda admits that thoughts of her master flooded her mind during her most desperate moments. She explains how her own suffering finally helped her understand the weight of his lifelong pain. Looking out the window, the maid begins to wonder if Adrian's dark path was actually necessary.
Hilda feels a wave of deep embarrassment after realizing she said her vulnerable thoughts out loud.
A gentle touch sounding draws Hilda's attention as her master reaches for her face.
Adrian gazes affectionately at the brown-haired woman while holding her face gently in his hands.
Hilda notes how fragile the master's hands appear despite the fact that they saved her life.
Adrian smiles warmly and tells the maid that it was actually she who saved him.
Adrian offers a soft word of gratitude as the maid reflects on her master's kindness.
Adrian smiles coldly while telling Hilda not to disappoint him. Hilda looks on in sheer terror at his unsettling and heavy request. Adrian sits alone in a dark room illuminated by melting candles.
A system notification confirms that the genre of this game is horror.
Hilda blinks rapidly, struggling to process the terrifying reality of her situation.
Dolores mocks Level 1 Hilda, questioning why she is the young master's maid.
Collage panels depict the characters as a cheerleader, school prince, and transfer student. Hilda explains her unique medicine delivery duty before walking away from the others. A firm hand suddenly seizes a wrist in a tight and painful grip.
Dolores insults Hilda's status as a lowborn orphan while clutching her moan.
The surrounding maids giggle and gossip as they watch the tense confrontation.
Hilda reflects on how the master is fine even with incompetent maids.
Dolores snaps back, demanding to know who Hilda thinks she is to judge. Hilda laments that none of them would be maids if they had skills.
Chibi maids are baffled by Hilda's strange comments regarding data and code.
Hilda pretends to sense an evil spirit to stop the maids from fighting.
She explains that Letitia's anger stems from her own frequent mistakes and failures.
Katerina is shown crying because she is in charge of cutting the onions.
The maids tremble as Hilda blames the evil spirit for their daily misfortunes.
Hilda demands they stop before the imaginary spirit decides to awaken and act.
She dramatically claims that a divine revelation from the temple is coming soon.
A sudden quick rattle sounds from a nearby pot as she makes her prediction.
Hilda's eye widens as her fake prophecy unexpectedly begins to come true. She warns that a pot will fall while privately worrying she is overacting.
The tiny maids are visibly shaken, actually believing her fabricated and dramatic prophecy.
Hilda is surprised to see even the aggressive Dolores looking genuinely terrified now.
Chibi Hilda winks while promoting a campaign for everyone to be more careful. Dolores grabs Hilda's collar, accusing her of making fun of the other maids. A hand swings toward Hilda as her words are dismissed as nonsense.
A sharp slap sounds as the aggressive hand is caught firmly midair.
Katerina intervenes, coldly questioning why Dolores raised her hand while being upset.
Dolores cowers in silence, unable to face someone who is truly scary.
Katerina smiles gently at Hilda after successfully diffusing the dangerous, intense situation.
Hilda thanks Katerina and asks if the other maid was looking for her.
Katerina warns that Leticia is looking for them and they are in trouble.
Rhythmic taps sound as the two maids walk quickly through the castle halls. A single heavy tap follows as Letitia descends the dark stone staircase alone.
Hilda finds comfort in having supportive companions during her difficult and stressful workday.
Katerina mentions to Letitia that the master's room was unusually clean yesterday.
Letitia warns that the master's room is now filled with things to clean. Letitia notes the Countess visited the room after having a nightmare about the past.
Katerina accepts the brief explanation with a somber and quiet expression of understanding.
Katerina watches Letitia walk away, confused by the sudden end to their conversation.
Hilda worries about keeping her total lack of knowledge a secret from everyone.
Katerina wonders if there is another deeper reason behind the Countess's nightmares.
Memories surface of the master being burned by holy water without any witnesses. Katerina recalls how servants used to call the master Satan out of fear.
A voice from behind the door permits the two maids to enter.
A long, high creak sounds as Hilda trembles while slowly opening the door. The maids are horrified to find the master's private room completely and utterly destroyed.
The blonde-haired boy admits that he no longer thinks it's possible to go back.
A sudden chill sounding fills the air as Hilda looks up in surprise.
The brown-haired woman frantically denies wanting to leave while Adrian questions where she would go.
Adrian smiles ominously while asking for more specific details about her mysterious place of origin.
A tight squeeze sounding follows as Adrian whispers his maid's name during the close embrace.
Hilda internally screams in panic as she realizes her accidental slip of the tongue.
Narrative boxes describe their continued life together and Hilda's hope for a calm future.
She turns her thoughts toward a god she doesn't even believe in for help.
Deep within her heart, the maid quietly offers a sincere and desperate prayer.
Dark storm clouds gather over the estate as a low creak sounding echoes through rain.
A black horse-drawn carriage makes its way through a torrential downpour toward the manor.
Heavy rain falls as a creak sounding marks the carriage arriving at the iron gates.
A sharp clack sounding rings out through the storm as someone steps onto the pavement.
A sudden lift sounding occurs as a hand raises a dark umbrella against the storm.
Adrian stands in the rain to welcome his mother back home to the grand estate.
Someone walks toward the manor as the heavy rain continues to soak the grounds.
Dark garden foliage shivers under the weight of the rain outside the arrival seam.
The blonde-haired woman smiles and expresses her gratitude for the welcome after her long absence.
A digital notification screen announces the successful completion of the first season's intense journey.
Letitia asks if the master is all right. He calmly confirms he is fine. A chilling close-up focuses on the piercing and intense blue eye of Adrian.
Adrian offers a serene and supportive smile against a backdrop of bright flowers.
Hilda gasps in wide-eyed terror as she agrees with her master's words.
Hilda stands tensely with a tray while Adrian reads a book in bed.
Gulp. A heavy swallow escapes Hilda's throat as the silent tension grows.
A rhythmic tap sounds as Adrian watches the maid leave the room.
A close-up reveals the mysterious and ancient script within the master's book.
Hilda trembles in distress, her face shadowed by growing dread and suspicion. Hilda leaves the medicine tray, announcing her departure to the young master.
Adrian stops her, noting she broke her recent habit of avoiding him.
Sweat beads on Hilda's face as she realizes her avoidance was discovered.
Adrian confronts Hilda about her distance while she remains frozen in shock.
Surrounded by dark petals, Adrian expresses relief that she is finally staying.
Hilda stammers a nervous response, her fear becoming nearly overwhelming.
She frantically denies avoiding him while trying to hide her visible shaking.
Adrian's gaze remains fixed and unreadable as he watches her reaction closely.
A collage depicts both characters with their eyes closed in shared heavy tension.
Adrian finally permits the maid to leave the dark and quiet room.
Outside the door, Hilda slumps to the floor in total, exhausted relief.
Puzzle pieces swirl as Hilda recalls terrifying rumors regarding the master's true nature.
A creak sounds as Katerina suddenly finds Hilda dazed in the hallway.
A sudden, firm grab startles the maid as she struggles to recover.
Hilda asks Katerina for Letitia's location as a sphere of puzzle pieces forms.
Dark narration confirms Letitia's whereabouts while floating puzzle pieces glow in the darkness.
A tap sounds as Letitia's shadow moves behind a closed chamber door.
Adrian stands alone in his room, raising his mysterious red book upward.
Hilda asks for Letitia as Katerina questions her frantic and strange behavior.
Adrian remains motionless in his chamber, lost in his own dark thoughts.
Bam! Hilda bursts through the door with an expression of pure panic.
She screams Letitia's name, her eyes wide with a desperate sense of alarm.
Letitia turns around, asking why Hilda is standing there so strangely now.
Hilda's green eyes dilate in shock as she sees Adrian as Heather.
Hilda faces both Letitia and Adrian within the well-lit and formal room.
A close-up shows Adrian's face obscured by a chilling and foreboding shadow.
Adrian smiles brightly at Hilda, commenting on how busy she looks today.
Letitia asks when he woke while Adrian offers to help with their work.
Letitia praises the master's thoughtfulness while Hilda watches from a distance.
Adrian fidgets his hands while asking Hilda if something is wrong outside.
Freeze! Hilda stops in her tracks, struggling to find a safe response.
She privately realizes she must hide her fear to survive Adrian's presence. Run! A messenger calls Letitia away to the kitchen immediately for help.
Letitia wonders why the kitchen is busy before taking her leave of them. Letitia instructs Hilda to grab a blanket before she departs the room. Hilda resolved to use Letitia's presence to test her safety with Adrian.
A system prompt appears, asking if Hilda wishes to use her sense skill.
Thump. A red glass heart glows with a mysterious and vibrant energy.
Hilda realizes she has successfully activated her new and important sense skill.
She worries about her lack of defense despite the master's current calm.
Hilda resolves to figure out how to master the skill's utility immediately.
Master Adrian stands by the bookshelf as Hilda quietly observes him from the bedside.
Her body reacts with a sudden, sharp flinch as a glowing red heart appears.
Hilda utters a soft sound as she watches her master read in silence.
Hilda realizes her skill is used specifically to sense the master's unsettling presence. Chibi Hilda feels immense relief now that she possesses such an essential skill.
Her hand jerks with a sudden, sharp flinch when Adrian calls her name.
Adrian stands motionless in the shadows while Hilda remains tense by the bed.
Adrian laments that the maid keeps her distance and won't glance at him. Hilda stammers a nervous lie about the blanket's softness while trembling with fear.
Adrian notes her odd behavior before she screams for Letitia and makes a turn.
Adrian watches in quiet disappointment as Hilda ignores him and flees the room.
Adrian observes his book, noting his dark power strangely fails to affect Hilda.
A soft quick click sounds as Hilda sits on her bed counting her wages. Chibi Hilda ponders the benefits of saving her fellow maids within the game world.
Hilda settles into her bed with a deep and weary frown on her face.
A system screen appears, suggesting a restart is the only way forward for them.
Hilda considers using her hard-earned gold to gain a future advantage in the game.
She envisions herself as a wealthy master escaping the game with her gold.
A sudden sharp cough sounds as Hilda plans to buy a gift for Emily.
A sudden sharp ding sounds as a system alert warns of a broken pillow.
Hilda stubbornly rejects the repair fee, insisting the pillow looks perfectly fine to her.
Violent, heavy coughs sound as the pillow is suddenly covered in dark, messy stains.
A sudden sharp ding sounds as the system holds a funeral for the pillar.
A loud, sharp scream sounds as Hilda's precious gold is deducted for the failure. Hilda sits in a daze, looking like a hollowed-out raccoon on her bare bed. She attempts to be resilient, deciding she can sleep perfectly well without a pillow.
Hilda closes her eyes, wishing for a more beautiful beginning in the morning.
A heavy, sudden thud sounds as an invisible barrier violently throws her backward. Hilda stares in wide-eyed horror at the strange force preventing her from resting. A system notification bluntly informs her that sleeping without a pillow is strictly prohibited. Hilda laments how the game system interferes with even her most basic human needs. A loud, sharp crack sounds as she screams in rage at the invisible bastards. A sudden, powerful whoosh sounds as Hilda prepares for a dramatic and desperate battle. She challenges the system, vowing not to let her lack of bedding defeat her.
Hilda desperately insists that she is capable of sleeping well on the hard mattress.
A firm, rhythmic thud sounds as she vows to keep trying until she succeeds. Heavy, rhythmic thuds sound as she battles the barrier for the right to sleep.
Rhythmic, heavy thuds sound as her hundreds of attempts result in repeated failure.
Hilda is left utterly broke and exhausted as the sleepless night finally ends.
The red-haired maid Emily stands amidst blooming lilies with a bright, supportive smile.
A long, high scream sounds from within as an exhausted Hilda offers a greeting.
The sun shines brightly over the towers of the massive and grand castle.
Emily asks if Hilda's terrible appearance is due to a lack of a pillow. The two maids walk together as Hilda confirms her miserable and sleepless night.
Hilda reflects on how absurd it is to be unable to sleep without bedding.
Emily offers to share her own pillow, leaving Hilda confused by the kindness.
Hilda curses the system while imagining a memorial for her vanished and destroyed pillow.
Hilda decides that Emily is the only truly trustworthy person in this difficult game.
Hilda stands in the lush garden, lifting her skirts with a look of surprise.
Emily explains the master is ill, prompting Letitia to order work in the garden.
Emily asks if something is wrong while Hilda reflects on her fleeting happiness.
Narration reveals Adrian's deteriorating health and his need for morning medication. Emily wonders why he is worsening despite his timely medication habits. Hilda realizes her tardiness with his medicine makes her the true culprit. The maids dash off to work as a way to wish for his recovery. Numerous servants are hard at work throughout the expansive castle grounds. Hilda stomps forward, vowing to work hard and recover yesterday's losses.
Hilda prepares herself for labor while her focus gauge continues to rise.
A sharp crack sounds as she readies herself for the task ahead. Hilda enters full power mode, determined to claim all available gold and experience. A colorful roulette event screen suddenly appears before the industrious maid. Hilda stops her work, looking completely bewildered by the sudden gaming interface. Her green eyes widen in shock as the roulette wheel begins to spin. Bam! A debuff notification informs her that 30% exhaustion has been applied. Hilda stares in disbelief, realizing the system has penalized her for lack of rest. A loud ding sounds as the system confirms her exhaustion stems from insufficient sleep.
Hilda grabs her apron in a fury as her luck and experience stats plummet.
A funeral notice appears for her mood while she seethes with growing annoyance. A minigame menu appears, offering various tasks to distract from the hard labor. The system suggests these games alleviate boredom and provide gold and items.
Hilda scoffs at the addition of cute details within a terrifying horror game.
She admits the limited-time raccoon hat is actually top tier for a gamer.
Chibi Hilda fails at picture matching before struggling through a difficult rhythm game.
A series of game over screens highlight her repeated failure at the tasks.
A dark screen announces that all of her attempts have ultimately failed.
Hilda laments failing 20 times, blaming her lack of experience and gold. A swing sounds as Hilda flails desperately while other servants watch in confusion.
Emily watches Hilda's erratic behavior, assuming her friend is simply exhausted.
Night falls as Hilda slumps over, having reached zero energy for the day. A heavy step sounds as Hilda walks home empty-handed and disappointed.
She feels relieved to be done reading but worries about her public image. Hilda notes her final task is returning the blanket to the master's room.
She climbs the stairs hoping to finish before Adrian finishes his meal. The quiet hallway is lit by candlelight as she approaches the master's door. A rhythmic knock sounds as Hilda announces her presence and enters the room. A soft close sounds as Hilda shuts the door, feeling an immediate chill.
Her eyes widen as she compares the room's atmosphere to a murder scene. Hilda plans a quick departure, unsettled by the creepy stillness of the chamber. Her eyes sparkle with tears as she spots the master's incredibly soft pillow. She approaches the bed, captivated by the cushion's inviting and lively texture.
A tremble sounds as she reaches out, desperate for even a moment's rest.
Hilda's hand finally touches the plush fabric, feeling a sense of pure luxury. She melts into the pillow, imagining herself surrounded by soft flowers and cherubs. Hilda apologizes to the master while surrendering to the desire to hug it. A sparkle sounds as the bed tempts the maid into staying just a bit longer. She playfully declares her temporary love for the master while enjoying the bedding. Hilda collapses onto the mattress, looking like a blissful angel of exhaustion. Tears of joy fill her eyes as she experiences the ultimate sleeping comfort. A sudden ding sounds as a realistic, intense gaze appears in her vision. A blurry window appears over the sleeping maid, announcing that her exhaustion has peaked.
Hilda declares the start of a second pillow war while lying in bed.
She acknowledges the system's bravery but remains determined to keep her bang. Hilda vows to show no mercy to anyone who attempts to take her pillow. A soft, quick curl sounds as Chibi Hilda finally sleeps without mercy.
A heavy, sudden thump sounds as Hilda sleeps soundly on her bed of pillows. A rhythmic, heavy thump sounds as her heart-shaped skill glows within its glass case. Heavy, rhythmic thumps sound as the system enters sleep mode due to extreme exhaustion.
Narration describes the human body's weakness and the struggle to escape disease through secrecy. A redbird consumes its prey as narration warns of an unkillable natural enemy.
Adrian watches a crow while narration cautions that killing his natural enemy ends the world.
Darkness surrounds falling figures where boundaries of time and space remain ambiguous.
A hand reaches into the void as Satan experiences a profound realization. Symbols of death and disease illustrate the harshest punishments known to the cursed.
Young Adrian coughs blood, a somber reminder of his agonizing past life. The title appears over an image of Adrian praying with a lace veil. Adrian sits at a long dining table as his servants wait nearby.
Alvin asks the young master about his well-being while Letitia stands the tie-in. Adrian credits his recovery to Alvin and Letitia, leaving the head maid feeling deeply flattered.
Adrian senses his dark power returning as the agony of his curse begins to fade. He darkly ponders the consequences of killing everyone currently residing within the manor.
A sharp, quick stab sounds as Alvin offers wine to strengthen the master's heart.
Adrian lifts his wine glass while lost in deep and unsettling thought. Alvin wishes for his recovery while Adrian notes he must limit wine due to medicine. Adrian expresses gratitude for the distillery's gift, unwilling to waste the fine vintage. A firm, quick pace sounds as he recalls his first murder of a maid.
Narration reveals he has killed 5 people since arriving at this residence. Adrian desires more power as Alvin and Letitia discuss the upcoming garden work. Letitia fondly recalls the young master's lifelong love for planting flowers by himself.
Adrian rises from the table as the servants continue their cheerful conversation. Adrian commands them to face him as Letitia mentions a specific flower he recently planted. A sudden cold chill sounds as Adrian's power freezes the servants in place. A soft, quick rustle sounds as Adrian's piercing blue eye focuses with intense power. Adrian categorizes humans into those to kill immediately and those to spare for later.
A soft, quick swish sounds as he views his servants through a blood-red glass.
Adrian admits he is grateful for the existence of the humans he keeps around.
A giant spider looms over the castle as Adrian looks out his window at night.
The blonde-haired man walks through the dimly lit hallway after finishing his meal. A soft, quick lift sounds as Adrian reaches out his hand while walking.
Rhythmic, heavy steps sound as he confirms his recovered hypnosis power works perfectly.
Adrian feels confident in his future plans, but remains bothered by a single concern.
He walks forward while reflecting on a loud, light brown-haired woman who avoids him. Adrian recalls the strange human who stubbornly resists his hypnotic commands to stay.
Adrian wonders if the maid who strangles him in his vision is his natural enemy.
Moonlight spills through the window as he decides not to jump to early conclusions.
He resolves to remain vigilant because every detail of the curse has proven true. The master approaches his quarters, his presence casting long shadows across the floor. Adrian stops before his bedroom door, his expression unreadable in the cool moonlight.
A soft, quick click sounds as he decides to retire for the night.
Adrian's gaze sharpens as he senses an unexpected presence waiting inside his room.
He questions who would enter his chambers, dismissing both the headmaid and the countess.